So the introduction to tonight's video is a little bit different from usual, with very good reason. Now, this is the first time in the history of this channel that I've done a 5-part story over the course of 5 consecutive nights. It's been quite compelling. It's really, I've enjoyed the interaction with you all, guessing what's going to happen in the next episode and all that kind of thing. But it's been drawn to my attention that not everybody has been watching every night, and I've been giving away a little bit of spoilers of what's happened before to new listeners. So I'm not giving anything away in this one. This is an incredible 5-part story, survival horror, post-apocalypse kind of thing, with a little bit of supernatural elements thrown in as well. So if you're new to this, if you're listening a year in the future, 5 years in the future, I know that this content is quite evergreen, so that happens quite a lot. You're in for a real treat. And those of you who have joined after the first 4 nights, and this is night 5 of those 5, well, you're in for a treat as well. So without further ado, here we go with the complete story of The Hunt. This is stupid, Mike said as he caught up with Fred. It's Friday night and I'm not getting laid. I'm sure your hand will forgive you, Fred snapped back, tired of his friend's incessant complaining. God, if I knew you were going to bitch this much, I'd have left you at home. Why can't you be more like Neil? Tell him, Neil. I'll leave me out of this. Bringing up the rear, the scrawny teenager fixed his glasses as the trio stumbled along in the dark. This part of town had once been an industrial zone bordering a housing complex. The ruins of long abandoned buildings, their doors and windows boarded up, only added to the sense of emptiness. Now, Neil half expected to see a bum slump out of the darkness to ask for change, only to offer a knife in the throat when they refused. Hey, where are we going? Better be a whorehouse, Mike muttered. But Fred heard it loud and clear. Is that all you think about? That and your mom. Fuck you. Fred was leading the procession, the boys walking in single file along a fence laden with graffiti. Much as Mike pissed him off, Fred liked having him around for protection. The guy was built like a brick and could intimidate almost anyone. He felt safer with Mike around, though he would never admit it. Neil was the type to just go along with the group. The brains to Mike's brawn. He fit the description of a nerd to a T, especially with the binocular-sized glasses he wore. He was Mike's foil and served as a good balance to their awkward trio. Fred wasn't exactly sure what he brought to the group. Good looks, maybe? Yeah, that was it. Following the fence, they came around the corner to a street lamp that flickered so much it created a strobe lighting effect. This made their shadows wax and wane against the fence, like they were being pulled and stretched to an inhumane length before being crushed back down. Only Neil seemed to notice this as he rushed to catch up with the other two. Cold, he pulled the collar of his sweater tight around him. Do you know where you're going? Mike asked, impatient. I feel like I'm being jerked around. You'd know, Fred shot back. He expected Mike to fire back with a mom joke, but held up his hand as if signaling a squad to come to a halt. Yo! He found it. A small opening along the fence just wide enough to fit through one at a time. There was a sign, just legible, around the mouth of the opening which read, Runners Here. The fuck is this? Mike asked. Can't you read? Oh, wait, you can't. Fred nimbly dodged a smack to the head by rearing back. Wait, that's us. Where the hell are we running from, pimps? It's a game, asshole. I told you this shit already. Fred already had a leg through the gap. Now, you want to play or go home? It was a bit of a squeeze, but Fred managed to get through without a splinter. The other side of the fence looked like an abandoned junkyard. Disused furniture, broken appliances, and what looked like a blow-up doll strapped to a punching bag. Hey, sexy, Fred whispered as he took a look around. Behind him, Mike struggled to put his impressive bulk through the hole while Fred stumbled in last. Fred turned to both of them. All right, listen up. Only the best players get invited to the game. So, Mike? He turned to him then. You behave, and Neil? To the other. Try to lighten up. Fixing his glasses, which had come loose while he squeezed through the gap, Neil said, "I understand basic human interaction, Freddy." Mike patted Neil on the back so hard his glasses came off again. "Well, yeah, but you understand girls." Neil backed off then, indignant. "Look, it's a game, dumbass." Gritting his teeth, Neil fixed his glasses again and turned to Fred. "The hunt? Sounds like a fancy name for hide and seek. What are we, 4 years old? This isn't just a game, it's the real thing." Seeing he had their attention, Fred elaborated further. "Yeah, it makes hide and seek look like hopscotch. Runners, that's us, participate in a race where we can win money, fame, cards, even girls." "Liking the sound of that," Mike said. "However," Fred went on, "this used to be a housing complex before everything went belly up. They try to host these things in abandoned areas so they don't attract attention." "How did you find out about it?" Neil asked in his aggravatingly curious voice. "Connections." Refusing to elaborate further, Fred continued. "Look, I don't make the rules. I'm a player now, and so are you." He stepped toward them. "Now, from what I've heard, we will be filmed at all times. That means there'll be people from all over the world watching us." "Making us look like fools, making fools of ourselves," Neil said, unimpressed. "I can't believe I agreed to this." Mike scoffed. "Head out on another night watching porn? Whoa, sucks for you." "Fuck you, Mike. Everyone wants to." "Easy, you guys." Fred got between them. Maybe his role in the group was as peacekeeper. Mike and Neil barely got along at the best of times, and that's when they weren't cold and staggering about in the middle of the night. "Come on. We're here to have a good time. Neil, you watch streaming shows all the time, but this time, you're the star. It'll be your face everyone sees when they click play." "Mike, I heard the players get real physical. You don't just run, you fight to keep from being caught. Well, you love knocking heads around, right?" "Will there be girls there?" "Well, everyone's invited." "In that case," Neil began, "why all the secrecy?" Fred shrugged. "Well, the game's, not exactly legal." Neil stepped away. "Damn, I figured as much. But forget it. I don't want to wind up in jail over some stupid game. You guys are idiots. I'm going home." He turned to leave, only to have Fred block his path. "You mind?" "Dude, we need a minimum of 3 players. It's the rules." "I don't care." "You only get 1 invite to the hunt. You never get called back." "Well, that's on you." "Look, that's not right, man. Haven't I always had your back? Even when we were kids, we were always together. Now, you did a lot of shit I wasn't cool with. Like that time we snuck into the ladies' room in the mall because the men's room was out of order. Told you to go outside and piss in the trees, but you didn't listen to me." Fred tapped his own chest now. "I'm the one who got caught. I'm the one whose folks got a call from security. I'm the one who was banned from going there ever again." Knowing where this was going, Neil sighed. "But I wasn't." "That's right. You know why? Because you didn't tell anyone I was there." "Damn straight. I made such a commotion that nobody noticed you while you still had your pants down. Kept my mouth shut, didn't even tell anyone in school so you'd be embarrassed. I didn't snitch." Fred chuckled then. "We know, both of us, that ain't even the worst thing I did for you, but no matter what, I always looked out for you. Now I'm asking for your help." "Hey, where was I when this happened?" Mike asked all of a sudden. "You pissed in the girls' room. Shit, I'd have been all over that." Ignoring him, Neil said, "Come on. Please, man. This is so stupid. Please." "I can't believe it. All right, fine, whatever." Reaching into his back pocket, Neil pulled out a face mask. "I'm going incognito. Deal?" Without waiting, he pulled the mask on, covering the lower part of his face. "You morons, you want your face all over the internet, but I don't." Fred clapped his hands. "Ah, my boy." And he flashed Mike a wink. You still wear that shit? If the cops see this, I'll be the only one they can't accurately identify. Plus, Neil pulled up his hood. Well, gives an aura of mystery. What? Aura? Aura? Means, well, you know what, never mind. Looking up, the boys spotted a large structure in the distance. A dark monolith with only a handful of lights clinging to it like fireflies. Surrounding the building was a graveyard of failed dreams. Fred only saw opportunity. Right, let's go. Walking towards the building, they spotted a large group of people in a clearing with a sign reading, "Runners Welcome," at the entrance. Each team consisted of 3 players, some wearing matching outfits or color-coding their attire. The clearing was surrounded by low-yield lamps powered by generators, at which the very center of stood a raised dais. A pair of men wearing dark clothes stood by the dais to ensure that none of the runners approached it. Others like them moved about the opening, checking equipment, answering questions, or just standing around like statues. One of the men approached Fred's group as they walked in. "Name," he said in a gravelly voice, carrying with him a pad on which several lines had been crossed out. Toadstool," Fred replied. The man looked over him once, then at his friends, before crossing another name off the list. "Welcome to the hunt. Please remain to the side. The host will be out shortly." And that was that. And the man walked away. Fred felt someone punch him from behind. "Toadstool?" Mike said in an incredulous voice. "What the fuck is that?" "What, do you think I'd be stupid enough to give my real names? You want to see that guy coming to your home address and knocking at your door?" "Toadstool," Mike said again in utter disbelief. "What, dumbass was already taken?" "Look, it's a reference to Mario Kart," Neil explained. "Fred used to play that game all day. He sucked." "Makes us sound like potheads." Mike glanced at the other teams. There were a couple of all-girl teams, though none of the players particularly caught his eye. There was an attractive girl sitting on a guy's lap, the 2 sucking face while their third player drank from a bottle. All wore distinct red sneakers to signify they were a team. Shit, I'm gonna go get a drink. Mike walked away to a makeshift concession stand, shaking his head, muttering, "Toadstool." "Fred?" Neil had his hands in his pockets trying to warm up. With his hood up and his mask on, he was unrecognizable to all save those who knew him. How many people do you think are watching us right now?" Fred looked around and took notice of the cameras that had been placed beside each of the lamps. There was one by the concession stand where Mike was ordering a drink, and if he didn't know any better, he'd say that bird on the corner of the sky was a drone. Fred only noticed it because of the moon, which was hidden behind a wall of clouds and appeared little more than a white eyelash. "I don't know, bro. A lot." That seemed to make Neil nervous. "This stinks. It's a junkyard. It's a sham." Neil lowered his voice when one of the men in black walked by. Only when he was safely away did he dare speak again. "I feel like this is some kind of flesh market and we're the pigs." "I told you, it's just a game." "I don't know, Neil. This is just... Look, it's messing with me, all right?" Seeing his friend shifting his balance from one foot to the other was making Fred feel self-conscious. Grabbing him by the shoulders, Fred forced him down to stop fidgeting and held him in place. He looked Neil right in the face. "Look, man, I need you to get it together, okay? You losing your shit is gonna make me lose my shit, and you know that's gonna only make Mike happy. You wanna see him happy? Me neither. So, just chill." Neil remained tense, though he did stop fidgeting. Mike returned with 3 beers in hand. "Right, time to man up, ladies." After distributing the beers, Mike took one long swig before looking around. "The fuck's up with the KGB agents?" "Probably higher security. Don't want just anyone playing the game." Neil took a swig. "Hey, thanks for the beers, man." "What can I say? I'm a nice guy." "Bullshit." Really, just, don't piss me off. Motioning to Neil then. What's wrong with him? Fred looked to Neil, who nursed his drink and kept looking around as if expecting to be attacked. He thinks this is a sham. Well, it could be. Who the hell holds a game out in a shithole like this? So, what do you think of the competition? Mike smiled. Yeah, mostly pussies. Hippies and preps with nothing else to do on a Friday night. Chuckling, he said, I heard a team calling themselves the Justice Heroes. I mean, what the fuck are we, Comic-Con? Suddenly Toadstool ain't so bad anymore. Fuck, man, you should have asked. I'd have given us a cool name like the Crushers or Dead to Rights. You lack imagination, Mike. Mike emptied his beer. What name would you use, Neil? Fuck, it's cold. You see, now that's original. I'm not being cute, I'm seriously freezing my balls off. He took a swig. Don't they have any coffee? Yeah, right by the cappuccino machine. You're such a dick. Well, that's what your mom keeps telling me. Oh, fuck off. Look, just chill. Fred got between them again. I feel like I'm looking after a pair of kids. Could you just relax? He keeps talking shit about my mom. So talk about my mom. I don't give a fuck. Mike's face hardened at that. I don't know where that bitch is anyway, so don't bother me. Well, that comment left an awkward silence in its wake. I'm getting another drink, Mike said and walked off. He makes it really hard to like him, Neil said in a hushed voice. He's had a shitty life. Doesn't mean he has to be shitty to the rest of us. Fred opened his mouth then, but thought better of it and shut up. Sometimes it's best to leave certain things unsaid. A bit of wisdom learned through years on the streets. And it was said that you could choose your friends, but not your family. Neil and Mike were as close to family as he'd ever had, so like it or not, this was it. If they played their cards right and listened to him, maybe, just maybe, they could all come out of this a little bit better. Oh, and a whole lot richer. When Mike did return, he was in brighter spirits, a sharp contrast to when he'd left. Fred knew it was a defense mechanism in dealing with a hard life. You kept your emotions in check and your heart closed. Else anyone could walk all over you. While he hadn't known Mike as long as he had Neil, Fred knew he could trust Mike when the chips were down. They'd been in enough scraps together to know they could count on the other in a fight. Well, this was it. This was Fred's team, his family. Now, if only they'd stop fighting, they could actually formulate a plan and focus. Mike's initial assessment of the competition seemed spot on, but Fred was more scrutinizing than that. Whereas his friend only recognized strength, Fred knew that it was what you didn't know that could kill you. Looking around, he spotted members of the other teams taking in the competition just like he was. A guy in a yellow hoodie kept his head low to hide his face, but was secretly sizing up the competition. One of the members of an all-girl team was walking around, her head completely covered in a mask so only her eyes were visible. She appeared casual but was secretly assessing the other team's strengths and capabilities. Well, by the time it came for the game to start, Mike was already on his third drink. Neil was still trying to get warm, kneeling on the floor while blowing hot air into his hands, when one of the men in black walked onto the dais. Hello. Good evening, everyone. I wish to thank you for joining us this night. You're now participants in a very special game. Let me welcome you to The Hunt. Several cheers went up at that. Mike raised his bottle, though he was half buzzed. Show us the fucking money, he laughed. Let's get this over with, Neil said as he stepped up beside Fred. Not the right attitude, Neil. God, I'd kill for a coffee. Tell you what, when we win, I'll buy you a barista. The host held up his hands to call for silence. Yes, now I know you're all eager to start, and so are your competitors. Fred blinked. Competitors? Wasn't everyone already here? He didn't see any other team show up. In fact, as far as he noticed, Toadstool was the last team to arrive. So what was this guy talking about? The host walked back and forth on the dais like a commander addressing his troop. First, the rules. He pointed. See that building? The goal of the game is to reach the top and ring the bell. Yeah, you heard me. There's a silver bell on the roof. It must be rung to signify the end of the hunt. So long as one member of your team does this, the whole team wins. Now, that may sound simple enough, but be forewarned. He raised his voice, all dramatic-like. It is not. The entire course is booby-trapped. Are you shitting me? Neil said. Did I hear that right? Shh, Fred said, his attention fully piqued. You must circumvent these traps. Make your way through the junkyard and up the high-rise, which is also riddled with traps and other surprises. Well, there were a few jeers at that. A few players appeared less enthusiastic than before. But, of course, there is a catch. He paused for dramatic effect. You will be chased by an opposing team, the Hunters. It will be their task to take each one of you down by whatever means necessary. If an entire team loses its players, then that team is disqualified from the game. No exceptions. Remember, it only takes one team member to ring the bell, so even if all your friends are taken down, you can still win. So don't let that fact discourage you. As for the other runners, do not let them stand in your way. When it comes to your competitors, there are no rules. Do what you have to ensure the other teams do not win. Remember, it's you three against everybody else. They will not hesitate to push, kick, or beat you if that means winning. So yes, my friends, in addition to avoiding the traps and the hunters, you'll have to contend with the other teams. The hunt is a game unlike any other. Here, you play to win. Ah, yes. Mike cracked his knuckles. Love busting heads almost as much as I do busting nuts. Don't be gross, Mike, Neil said to the side. And the host raised his hand. This next part is very important. Once the game starts, there is no turning back. Any attempt to leave the grounds will result in immediate disqualification. He held his breath. But there are no quitters here, yes. Several no's rang out, indicating the runner's readiness to play. A few players, though, looked about as if looking for an exit. It was then Fred noticed several of the men in black appearing just on the periphery of the gathering. It was like being penned in. Fred began to wonder if perhaps the option to leave wasn't really a choice at all. Not surprisingly, he looked behind them to see the way cut off by one of the men, the same one who'd taken their name upon arrival. Oh, what the fuck? Now then. And the host slapped his hands together. Want to know what you're all playing for? More cheers rang out. The host raised his hand and one of the other fellows brought out a suitcase. Beside him, Fred could see Mike's eyes light up with excitement. Even Neil stopped shaking, seeming to just now fully appreciate their situation. The man held the suitcase up horizontally so that the host could open it up. Inside the case was nothing but green, nothing but Benjamins. $1 million, the host exclaimed. Whistles, cheers, and swears accompanied this revelation. To the victors go the spoils. Oh, fuck me. Mike bobbed up and down on his knees, appearing childlike all of a sudden. Shit, man, that's... Oh, fuck. We're gonna be freaking millionaires. Neil turned to him. Well, you know, split in 3 ways, that amounts to just 333,333, right? Neil, shut up. Mike shoved Fred in the shoulder. Oh, you weren't fucking around, man. This shit is real. I'm gonna get so much pussy with that money. Is that all you ever think about? Neil snapped. Well, that and... My mom, yeah, you already said that, dickhead. I was gonna say cars, but yeah, your mom too. For once, Fred was too transfixed to break them up. Even over $250,000 would be enough to change his life around. He could finally move out of his shitty apartment, go someplace nice, someplace warm. He'd never have to look back. One way or another, they were winning this thing. The host closed the suitcase and the man walked off the dais. Once the cheers had died down, he regarded each of the teams individually. That's worth playing for, eh? In a few moments, I will sound the horn to begin the game. When that happens, you will make for the building at full speed. Let nothing stand in your way. Not long after that, I will sound out a second horn, which will signal the hunters to begin. We want to make sure you have a head start. Fair warning, the hunters are dedicated. They will not stop. They will not hesitate to take you down any way they can. My advice? Run. Fuck that, Mike spoke up. Hey. The host turned to him. Does that mean I can't punch one in the face if he tries something? The host smiled. You can try. Well, someone's gonna get knocked out, Mike bragged. I'll give you all a moment to talk strategy. The game will begin shortly. The boys turned around so that only they could hear each other. Right, listen, Fred began. Let's be smart about this. What's our strategy? Mike spoke up first. Run like hell, man. Get to the building first, up the stairs, and ring the bell. That's why the Neanderthals died out, Neil said. Got something to say, pencil dick? The jock snapped. Yeah, you're a moron. Look, most of the other teams are going to be doing one of two things. Run or fight. Running across an obstacle course full of traps is bad enough. Fighting everyone along the way is suicide. No, I say we hold back. Stay behind the other teams and let them trigger the traps. When we see teams fighting each other, we either run past them or let them wear each other out before fighting whoever's left standing. Either way, we'll have less competition and reserve our strength for when we need it. Well, I knew we kept you around for a reason. Fred patted him on the head, which only annoyed him. But Mike wasn't so impressed. Yeah, while we're dicking around in the back, one of the faster teams will get to the building first and ring that bell. You know what a race is? I'm not saying we just walk, stupid, but we need to pace ourselves. Neil took a look around. How about we keep behind one of the physically weaker teams? That way, if we have to fight them, our chances will be better. Fred turned to Mike. Well, shit, man, I want to fight. But do you want to be rich? We thought about it. Yeah, I do. Good. Well, there's just one problem. They both looked back to Neil. The hunters. Don't know how many of them there are or what they can do, so I'm open to suggestions. Mike had one. You heard the boss. He said we can punch them out if they try something. I don't trust him. I mean, they have to be special if they're hunting us. What threat can they be otherwise? Fred hated to admit it, but Neil made sense. Well, he sucked at math, but he knew how bad unknown variables could be. Right, then we keep our heads down, follow the other teams, fight when we have to, and try to stay away from the hunters. If one shows up, then you can punch him in the face, Mike. Nice. Okay, break. Once the teams had finished their strategy, the host spoke up again. In his hand, he held a blowhorn. Looking out at the crowd before him, his smile went from ear to ear, and it seemed predatory. All right then. Runners, you ready? The teams let out their affirmation. Remember, first to that bell wins. Now. He held up the horn. You have a 5-minute head start. Make it count. The teams lined up by the dais, all facing the building in the distance. A few barbs were being exchanged, some downright insults, and even a couple of threats. Well, it's going to be one of those games. Mike appeared like a linebacker ready to attack the defensive line. He licked his lips in anticipation. Fred smiled. They could win this, he thought. The three of them. Team Toadstool. Funny how that name sounded less cool in his head than saying it out loud. Get ready for... The host held up the horn. The hunt. The blowhorn was deafening, but it was soon drowned out by the hoots and hollers of the contestants as the runners burst into action. At first, they were all neck and neck, the teams moving in unison deeper into the junkyard, but as soon as space became limited, they started to split up. One team already fell into fighting, the runners exchanging blows. Oh, man, Mike said, though he stayed the course and remained with his friends. The teams who were fighting seemed to have forgotten all about the race, throwing punches and rolling around on the floor. Mike laughed as one of them smashed another's face against a disused refrigerator. Holy shit, Mike laughed. They put the dais behind them and plunged into the junkyard. There wasn't much light and the boys found themselves stumbling more than running. The building seemed further away than before, though it could have been a trick of the darkness. They started to bump into things, heavy things, sharp things. Where the fuck are we going? Mike said, waiting for the others to catch up. Neil bumped into Fred when he came to a sudden stop. Hey, either of you brought a flashlight? Fred shook his head to Mike's question, realizing his friend couldn't see it, and spoke up instead. Nah. Neil the eel? No, Mike. If I knew I'd been running for my life at midnight, then maybe, but I didn't. Me without my matches, Fred said. Somewhere to the side, something heavy, metallic, struck the ground. Somebody screamed. What was that? One of the traps, Neil said. I think somebody's hurt. The scream turned into wailing. Oh, seriously hurt. He turned to Fred with a look of concern. I don't think this is really a game, Fred. We could get seriously hurt. Are you going to puss out? O'Neill glared at Mike. I'm serious. I wouldn't mind winning, but I don't want to lose my head while doing it. Look, both of you just need to stay behind me. I'll win this. Mike punched his knuckles together, eager to put them to use. Come on, let's go. And he ran off before they could stop him. Ah, shit, come on. Fred grabbed Neil by the arm and pushed him forward. They had a solid strategy, so long as each of them played their part. Right now, the only person Fred trusted not to flake out of it was himself. Mike was too gung-ho for Valance, and Neil was just keeping it together only barely. The race had only just started. They had a scuffle coming off to their left, where a wall of junk blocked their view. Something fell off of the top of the heap and clambered down toward them. Hey, watch it. Fred pushed Neil out of the way as a broken window fan shattered upon hitting the ground just inches from where Neil had been. I'm bleeding. They heard someone yell on the other side. It sounded like a man whose voice went up a few octaves. It won't stop. Oh, God. Somebody help me. Keep moving, Fred snapped. All around them, they could hear fights breaking out. Teams choosing to throw down instead of making a beeline for the building, which is what they should have been doing. Perhaps they thought taking out the competition made their chances at victory easier, not realizing fighting should be a last resort. What good is taking out the other players if you lost an eye, an arm, or a leg doing it? The last thing Fred wanted to do was waste his newfound wealth on expensive surgery. He had plans for that money. Someone collided with him, slamming his body to the ground. Fred felt the breath in his lungs leap into the air like a cat startled from its sleep. In the dark, he could see a shadow looming over him, straddling him on both sides, holding something heavy in its hands. But Neil was there before the shadow could do anything. He tackled the assailant, forcing him off Fred, buying him time that he needed to recover. Once he was back on his feet, Fred realized that the attacker wasn't alone. His teammates were right behind him, two of them cornering Mike, who was exchanging blows like a trained boxer. Fred had a choice to make. Mike looked to be holding his own and was larger than those attacking him. Neil, brave as he was already losing the fight against the other runner, who had already rolled him around so as to be on top. The runner began taking swipes, forcing Neil to cover his face. Par for the course. Fred moved forward and kicked the attacker in the back of the head. The runner fell over, groaning, allowing Neil to roll away. Fred didn't wait for the runner to get back up. Turning him over, Fred punched him once, twice, 3 times in the face. He could feel blood on his fist as he drew back, hearing the telltale sound of a broken nose. The runner went limp. "Watch him," he told Neil as he went over to help Mike. Somehow the assailants had managed to push Mike back against a wall of refuse, striking him from both sides. Fred noticed one of them had a weapon, a steel bar picked up from somewhere. He swung and narrowly missed Mike's head. "Hey!" One with the bar looked around just as Fred punched him in the face. He managed to hold on to the makeshift weapon, however, and swung blindly to keep Fred at bay. Mike charged the other guy, who seemed less enthusiastic now that it was a one-on-one. Reaching out, Fred grabbed the arm swinging the bar and punched the guy in the gut, reeling him over. A quick elbow between the shoulder blades and the back of the neck put the runner down for good. The bar clanged to the floor, and Fred kicked him a couple of times to make sure he didn't get back up. Gasping, he decided to take the metal bar. Neil walked up to him, also out of breath. "Hey, thanks. That was some tackle. Wonder why one of them didn't go after you. Probably didn't see me. I am small." You helped me out, man. Don't sell yourself short." Fred swung the bar a couple of times to get a feel for it. Comfortable, he looked to see Mike walking back to them, grumbling. "Yeah, what happened?" "A bitch ran away before I could clock him. Got me all worked up for nothing." "Hey, what's that?" "What's it look like, man?" "Hey, give it to Glasses. He needs a weapon." Fred did offer the bar to Neil, who declined. "You sure?" "You saw how I did. I'm not a fighter." "Oh, you ain't a lover either." "You ran right into that ambush." Neil spat at Mike. "They were waiting for another team to run by." He looked back the way they came. If that fan hadn't slowed us down when it did, all 3 of us would have been caught by surprise. Feeling the weight of the bar, which was actually a metal beam from a large piece of furniture, Fred felt his body tense up. God, these guys are playing for keeps. So should we. Mike kicked the guy on the floor before going through his pockets. "What the hell are you doing?" Neil asked. In time, Mike pulled out a lighter and smiled. "Getting my spoils." He lit it up. "Put that out," Neil snapped. "You'll give us away." When Mike complied, Fred decided his brawny friend had the right to it and searched the guy who tackled him. Sadly, he found nothing of use in his pockets. Damn. From somewhere came a great commotion as a mountain of trash came down. Fred thought he heard someone scream but wasn't sure. Well, playing for keeps didn't cut it. "Guys," Neil began, "I'm not sure I want to do this anymore. If we leave, we're disqualified. We have to reach the end." Fred stood up. He thought he heard another team heading their way. "Right, keep to the sides. Move slowly. In fact, Mike, let me take the lead." "Why?" "I want to keep you in reserve. In case we get into a fight, I want them to see you last and piss their pants when you come out swinging. Neil, I want that brain of yours thinking. I want strategies we can use. You're the hilt. I'm the pommel. Mike is the sword, okay?" Whatever Mike said, though he didn't like being in the back. "I swear if you fall, Neil, I'm running right over you." Exasperated, Fred said, "Right, let's go." Taking the lead, Fred took them around a narrow pass that split into a fork. He stopped when he saw something on the ground. It looked like... oh, shit. A body. He was lying face down on the ground with one arm twisted at an odd angle. Fred approached it carefully, as if expecting another ambush, but his fears were unfounded as no runners sprang out at them. "Oh, fuck," he heard Neil swear. "Damn," Mike swore. "I mean, damn." "Is he, Neil asked. Walking over, Fred nudged the body, only to hear it moan. "Still alive, but barely. Should we, Fred cut Neil off. "We can't, man. I'm sorry, but we got a race to win." "Shit, Fred. He needs help. Look at his arm. The guy needs a hospital." "We can't help him." "You mean we're not going to do anything?" Fred turned around. "That was you on the ground? You think he'd help? That guy back there was about to bash my face in when you came around. One of them wanted to use Mike's head as a baseball. This isn't just a race, Neil. It's life or death." "But he's not dead." "And the faster we win, the faster he gets help. You want him to live, then let's find the bell and win this shit." Fred's tone indicated that the argument was over. He stepped over the poor man as if he were a little more than a hobo on the street. He knew Neil was smart, but the guy could be a bleeding heart sometimes. That's why Fred always had to protect him when they were kids. He'd get picked on all the time at school. Well, he hoped Neil would grow up quick. Moments later, they met with their first obstacle. A series of metal bars had been arranged like a cage within a large clearing. Doubling back would take too much time, and the walls around them were too high and unstable to climb, so there was no choice but forward. Fred led the way, finding the path through to be easy and simplistic, almost as if made for a child. Then the space began to narrow, and soon he was walking sideways. He was soon forced to duck his head and hunch his shoulders. "Ah, fuck this," Mike said from the back. "Fred, what is this shit?" "Are we almost there?" Neil asked. "We're here," Fred said as he stumbled into the middle of the cage. The space was a box just wide enough for the three of them to fit in together. There was a hole at the opposite end from where they entered. "It's like we're back in kindergarten," Neil said. "You going in?" "Well, I can't tell you how many times I heard that," Mike joked. "Oh, shut up, Mike," Fred said as he took a look inside. The hole went in for some way before veering to the right. "Well, guess we're doing this." Fred ducked inside, tucking the metal bar in his shirt for safekeeping. Though tight, he managed to squirm in while moving on all fours. Holes had been dug into the tunnel so that he could just about see his way. "Right, let's go," he called out behind him. There was enough room for him to look over his shoulder, and he could see his friends catching up. Once Fred turned the corner, he felt a sharp pinch in his hand, forcing him to stop. "You whore," he snapped. Something crunched underneath him as he moved. His other hand was pricked as well. "Neil?" "What?" His friend's voice said from far back. "Ask Mike to give me the lighter. I need to see something." After some work, Neil managed to pass the lighter forward, which meant sliding it between Fred's knees. Fred picked up the lighter and flicked it on. "Oh, you gotta be." Broken glass lined the interior, stretching all the way down the tunnel. "What is it?" Neil asked. "There's broken glass in here." "What?" "What?" Mike mimicked. As Neil relayed the information, Fred held the lighter as far out as he could. Oh, some sadistic asshole had coated the whole interior of the tunnel with glass. "Guys, we have to go back." There came a loud bang that sounded like a metal hatch coming down. Fred heard Mike scream. "Mike! Someone shut the fucking door." "Door? What door?" Fred hadn't seen a door. "Hey, can we get out?" He heard commotion behind him as Mike scrambled around. Then it sounded like he was kicking the door down. After several failed attempts, Mike swore like a man possessed. "Damn, it's sealed shut." "Fred, what kind of game is this?" You could hear the tremor in Neil's voice. hear his rasped breathing. Truth be told, Fred was doing all he could to keep it together. He wasn't particularly afraid of tight spaces, but being shut inside the tunnel in the dark made him feel like he was in a coffin. Then, he heard it. "Mike, get us out of here," he managed to blurt out before the tunnel began spinning, slowly at first, but picking up speed as it went. The light bounced around as he did, and it took all the conscious effort he had left not to drop the lighter. Neil and Mike screamed and cursed, respectively, both realizing the sudden danger they were in. Suddenly, and to Fred's surprise, he saw a door slide open at the end of the tunnel. A way out. "Come on." With the tunnel spinning, it was near impossible to stay upright. Fred crawled as best he could, feeling the glass bits slice at his clothes and skin. His main concern was not to cut his face, and Fred held back a scream as his hands bled from 100 places. From time to time, his head would scrape against the sides. He felt a small bit of his ear come off and screamed bloody murder. Behind him, Mike and Neil were also being minced. Yet they all urgently rushed as fast as they could through the tunnel. Fred shot out head first, rolling onto a small decline and into a pool of muddy water. He came up gasping and cursing, stumbling about in pain and surprise. Behind him, Neil splashed into the water and Mike behind him. The door slid shut and they were trapped in the waist-high pool. It extended about 20 feet down a small canal with steep walls to either side. Most shocking of all were the metal bars that hung menacingly overhead. "What's going on?" Neil cried out. Covered, his face suffered the least cuts, but his hands were bleeding from all over the place. "Oh, Christ, is this water sanitary? We could get infected." "Hey, assholes," Mike screamed at a camera which was posted along the wall behind the bars. "I want to talk to your boss. I've got a few complaints." "This isn't funny anymore, Fred. I want to go home." "Neil, we made it, didn't we? This is bullshit." "Stop screaming. You're screaming." "Hey, dickwads," Mike called to get their attention. "You hear that?" They listened. A whirring sound like something powering up drew their attention upward. Electricity coursed through the metal bars as they began to slowly descend towards the water. Fred called for them to move, but they needn't have bothered because they ran all in unison. Wading through the water stalled their progress, and they fast-waddled as best they could towards the end. Fred pulled himself out of the pool first, reaching back to grab Neil, who was nearly thrown out of the water by Mike. "Hey, Mike!" The brawny youth barely had time to pull himself out as the bars splashed into the water, sending sparks and smoke into the air. The trio collapsed sideways, realizing just how close they'd come to death. "Hey, guys," Fred said after he caught his breath. They both looked to him. "I think I just pissed myself." From the distance, they heard another horn go off. The hunters had entered the game. Part 2. "Right, I'm out." Neil hurried away, his skinny legs propelling him faster than usual. "This is beyond fucked up. I'm not gonna die here." "Neil?" Fred rushed to catch up with him, grabbing his friend by the shoulder. Neil shrugged him off. Even with the dim lighting, he could make out the look of unabashed fear in Neil's face. The boy's eyes were wide, his glasses trembled on his face, his mask puffed in and out like a heart pump. Even his voice, usually nasally but poised, was nearing operatic levels in pitch. "Get out of my way, Fred. I swear to God, I'm not doing this anymore. This is crazy. You're crazy. Get away." Neil backed away from Fred as if he had the plague. He almost bumped into Mike, who was lost in his own thoughts, his gaze drifting between his feuding friends and the death trap they'd narrowly escaped. "You've lost it, Fred. This isn't right. I told you I didn't want to do this. I'm going. I don't care if we're disqualified. This isn't worth it." "Fine. Go," Fred snapped. See how long you last by yourself. It's a madhouse out there. Players will pounce on you like wolves. God, they'll eat you alive, Neil. Now you got those hunters out there. You think they'll go easy on you? I don't care. Well, you should. You won't make it out on your own. They'll tear you apart. We almost died. Neil fell to his knees, his hands shaking. Seeing his hands and fingers all bloodied up, the boy ripped off his mask as it started to feel too restrictive. God, he was almost hyperventilating. Shit. Oh, shit. I don't know, man. Mike spoke up at that moment. I'm down for a fight. You know that, but this is some sore shit right here. I'm not a fucking hamster in a maze. It's a rat in a maze, you dumb shit, Neil said, somehow retaining his banter with Mike despite all that had happened. Enough, Fred cried. They looked at him. Reaching into his pocket, Fred pulled out a handkerchief and began to rip it up, distributing the pieces to his friends. Right, bandage your hands. Come on. They did as he instructed. Once finished, he addressed them again. We have to keep going. They won't just let us out of here. What the fuck are you talking about? Mike asked. Look around you, numbnuts. The men in black, the fights, the traps. This is life or death. You think they'll just let us walk out of here after seeing what we did? Look, what's to stop us from walking to the police and telling them all about it? He winced as he tightened his bandage. It's win or die. You knew, Neil said. You knew there was no getting out of this. I have to win the money. Fred took a deep breath then. I messed up with Taxi. Mike's eyes widened. Taxi? You owe Taxi money? Neil looked between the two of them. Wait, the drug dealer? The sociopathic drug dealer. Oh, the guy's a psychopath. Well, that's two different things. Oh, Neil, I swear to... Ignoring him, Mike regarded Fred with renewed vehemence. Oh, how the fuck did you cross Taxi? I told you to stay away from him. Reaching over with his powerful arms, he grabbed Fred and shook him. Come on, man, what did you do? He asked me to be a courier. Well, the money was good, and I was tight on funds. You know my mom don't make much, but it went bad. I lost the goods. Fred grimaced. Taxi says I have 1 week to come up with the money before he takes my head and delivers it to my mom. You know he doesn't make threats. He makes promises. You motherfucker. It was a stupid mistake. I was supposed to be the dumb one. What the hell was going on in your head? Angry, Fred pushed Mike away. I needed the money, all right? Well, I always need money. Doesn't mean I get into bed with pricks like Taxi. I knew a guy who nicked his car while riding a motorcycle. Taxi had both of his legs broken. What do you think he'll do to a guy like you? You brought us here, Neil began, to help you settle a score, Fred. He looked up. God, you are a piece of shit. I'm sorry, Neil, Mike. I didn't think it could go down like this. When I learned the hunt was being hosted nearby, I thought we could win easy money. These are our streets, our house. We can do anything when we're together. Does that mean we'll die together too? Slowly Neil stood up, staring down Fred even though he was a head taller. You're not gonna die. I almost did just now. I mean, we all did. Yeah, but we didn't. Fred took a step back so he could address the two of them. It's not like you guys get nothing out of it. We can all walk away with more than $300K in our pocket before the end of the night. I can pay off Taxi. Mike can buy a car. You can go to college. We all win. If we live, Neil finalized. If we win, Fred clarified. Well, Mike was chuckling to himself. You know something, bro. If you told me this was what it was really about, I might still have gone along with it. I can deal with the fights, the traps, even Neil's bitching. Then he walked up to Fred and punched him in the gut, causing him to bowl over. But I don't like being lied to. Oh yeah, I'm a prick, but I'm an honest prick. And I don't like being used. Same here, Neil said. After all the shit we've been through, God, this is too far. Right, let's get out of here. Mike walked off, and Neil followed shortly, offering Fred a condescending look before he turned away. Fred clenched his jaw, the pain from Mike's punch still reverberating throughout his body. He knew he'd fucked up, but that was that. He'd make it up to them, he knew, but later. Right now, they had a game to win. Well, they encountered their first hunter not long after. They moved in silence toward the building, now focused and completely alert. Fred's revelation had created a schism between their group, and even Mike and Neil stopped exchanging insults. It's as if they suddenly realized just how desperate their situation was, and stopped treating it like a game. In time, they crossed paths with another team who, for some godforsaken reason, had chosen to wear bright red shirts for the event. Mike ambushed the first one he saw and body slammed him into the hardest thing he could find. Fred took out his metal bar and fenced with the other, who had picked up a loose board as a weapon. The board was heavier, but that made him slower. Biding his time, Fred waited for an opening and took advantage, putting the runner down once and for all. The last runner had been wounded already and had the misfortune of dealing with Neil. He tore into the player as if he were responsible for all of this. Punching the guy right in the nose, Neil wailed on him as he squirmed on the ground, holding his hands up in meager defense. Fred had to pull him before he killed the poor guy. Looking into his eyes, Fred feared if that's what he'd intended to do. There was a coldness in Neil. Fred wondered whose face Neil envisioned when he was bashing the guy's face in. Ah, good, he thought. Let him use that anger. They needed to go all out if they intended to survive. In another clearing, they spotted something that stopped them dead in their tracks. Several merry-go-rounds had been set up to serve as obstacles. They were all spinning at the same time, only each rail having a saw attached to them to create spinning blades of death. Oh, fuck me, Mike said. At the very center of the deadly cyclone was a wounded woman. She was bleeding profusely from her back and pounding like a wounded dog. They could hear her whimpering over the sounds of the blades. It doesn't make sense, Neil said. Mike scoffed. Bitch forgot to duck is all. That's just it. Those blades are easy to avoid. You just need to crawl under them. How the hell then did she get cut? Why don't we ask? Fred was moving before he could respond. Neil's assessment proved correct, and he managed to crawl beneath the blades with ease. The whistling sound they emitted was unnerving. You could only imagine how sharp those edges were. By the time he reached the center, the girl was still unaware of his presence. Upon closer inspection, he noticed she had not one, but 3 deep gashes across her back. Those didn't even look like blade cuts. Hey, Startled, she turned and held up a broken bottle as a weapon. Her eyes were wide and she had blood across her face. Stay back. Oh, easy. Fred held up his hands. I just want to get by you. Where's your team? Tears filled her eyes. They're dead. He killed them. Her whole body was trembling. Her arms acted as if the bottle was suddenly too heavy to hold. He tore into them like an animal. He? Fred said. Mike and Neil had crawled through right then. Where is he? I ran away. I tried to get away, but he clawed me. I could feel his fingers in my back. God, he wasn't human. Who's she talking about? Mike asked. The hunter, she said. He ate my team. Oh, shit. As if things weren't bad enough, Fred turned to the others then. Yeah, looks like we got cannibals. Hey, where'd you last see him? Mike asked the frightened woman. She was about to respond when she froze. Trembling, she raised a shaky finger behind them back the way they'd came. They slowly turned, spotting a large, hulking man on the outside of the spinning blades. He was naked with thin, rippling muscles and walked as if in pain. His skin was covered in blood and he was hunched over. Even then they could see he was tall, even taller than Mike. What's worse were his eyes. They were a hateful yellow, and he was looking right at them. "What?" Fred began. Neil continued. "Fuck," Mike finished. The man was bald, and as he approached, they realized that he had marks all over his head. It looked like he scraped his nails all over his skin. Those same marks covered his chest, arms, and legs. He was grunting profusely, like every step took effort. It pained him in some fashion. Jerking back and forth, he stopped just short of the first cutting blade. Only when the metal sliced a piece of skin off of him did he open his mouth. An unearthly growl escaped his crooked yellow teeth, a combination of exquisite pain mixed with unbridled anger. Before their very eyes, he ducked and ran on all fours, his head narrowly missing one of the spinning blades. Like an animal he moved, all instinct, as if it was simply natural to him. "Fred!" Neil cried out as he was the closest to the blades. Hearing his voice had snapped Fred out of his trance, and he reacted just as the insane man leaped the last few feet toward him. Grabbing his leg, the man pulled Fred toward him. His strength was such that Fred felt like a child in comparison. Reaching in his shirt, he pulled out the metal bar and began smashing it into the man's hand, breaking a couple of fingers. Still, he did not relent. "Oh, fuck." The girl, despite her wounds, got up and ran away. She didn't get far, for in her haste to escape, she ran into one of the blades. It cleaved her nearly in two, the upper half slicing off like a puzzle piece. Blood sprayed in the air, coating Neil. He screamed louder than he ever had in his life. Meanwhile, Fred was fighting for his life. He kicked at the man's face, caving his nose inward and sending out spurts of blood. But still the man pulled, desperate to get at the meat. "Help me," he screamed. "Jesus, the hell are you standing around for?" The man pulled Fred until he was right on top of him. At that moment, the youth did the only thing he could think of and jammed the bar into the man's shoulder. Blood spilled out of the wound, and the man howled. Yet he still pressed on. Even when Fred pushed the bar in inch by inch, it did nothing to deter the maniac. Suddenly a shadow appeared overhead, and Mike, grasping the upper half of what was once the young woman, slammed the gory projectile into the man's face. The heavier blow seemed to do the trick, and he fell off Fred. The cannibal's back was sliced open by one of the blades. The sound he made. "Come on," Mike said, grabbing Fred as he did so. They followed Neil, who'd already crawled beneath the other blades to escape to the other side, scurrying like frightened insects. Neil kept screaming at them to hurry up. They struggled to their feet, gasping as if just coming up for air. A frightening noise caused the trio to look back. It wasn't the injury that spurned the feral man to scream, but something else, a more ancient pain. He began to tear off his own skin, pulling bits at first and then chunks. Soon his muscles were exposed as his claws. Wait, did he always have claws? The terrible sharp fingers which he used to cut himself were now incredibly long, lethally deadly appendages. Before their very eyes, he seemed to grow with each slice, getting taller, and his arms extended. His bones popped and twisted, his knees bent the other way, his face elongated, mouth twisted into a snout as his cranium became less human and more canine. By the time the transformation ended, the man they thought was a cannibal was now a monstrous half-man, half-beast thing. His skin was still hairless, yet revealed exposed muscle and tissue. His torso had thinned so that the muscle mass could be moved to his outer extremities, providing longer limbs. His ears had elongated as well, now resembling knives with full range of movement. About the only thing that hadn't changed were his eyes, still that angry yellow. Now on all fours, the monster reared back its large head and let out a howl of anguish. He sniffed the air. His gaze fell on the cadaver of the young woman and, without the slightest hesitation, began to feast on the remains. Fred felt like vomiting. "Come on." Mike grabbed his teammates, almost pulling them off their feet. There was no hiding the fear in his voice. "I said, come on, move," he screamed. They flared into the darkness as the creature feasted. All around the junkyard, more howls filled the air. "What the hell was that?" Mike asked, only when they'd finally put enough distance between themselves and the creature. They were hunched over and struggling to catch their breath. Neil had fallen to his knees and began to hurl all over the ground, his back lurching. Fred followed suit, though he stayed on his feet. Mike began pulling at his hair. "Did you see that? I mean, I'm not crazy, right? Oh, holy shit. This whole game is fucked up." "Mike," Fred snapped once he'd gotten a hold of his innards. "Just chill out." "Chill out? You want me to chill out? Well, okay, fearless leader, I'll chill out." Mike stepped up to him, pointing in the direction they'd come from. "You want to tell me what the hell just happened? Because I don't fucking know. Maybe you do since you know everything." Fred stood up. "What the hell's that supposed to mean?" "I don't know, Freddy boy. Explain this to me." "Mike, I don't know what that was. Why in the God's golden balls do you think I'd understand any of that?" "Because you brought us here." Mike was almost spitting in his face. Never had Fred seen his friend so uptight. Who could blame him? "Is it worth it? You need money so bad that you had to take a job from Taxi, screw it up, and then screw up both our lives because you couldn't hack it?" "Fuck you, Mike." "Yeah?" Mike pushed him. "Go ahead, tough guy, come at me." Fred almost did. Right now, there was nothing he wanted to do more than break Mike's nose, smash his face, cut up his... Well, it was like he'd just snapped out of a trance. Suddenly, it all became clear. Werewolves. What? We just saw frickin' werewolf. Mike's jaw went slack. He took a step forward, grabbing Fred by the collar, and threatened, "I'm gonna punch you, man. I'm gonna just fucking punch you and Stop it." Neil looked up, bile dripping from his face. He wiped his chin as he slowly got up. "Don't be stupid, Mike. At least not more than you already are. You were there, you saw it. You watched the movies." Then to Fred, "He's right. Are you too high?" Letting Fred go, Mike looked between them, his chest rising and falling as if breathing became a chore. Finally he said, "Because if you are, can you give me a hit? Because I'm losing it." "The hunt," Fred said. "They are the hunters. We are the hunted. Tell me you didn't know this before you signed our death warrants. Tell me, Fred." Looking at Neil, Fred shook his head. "It's supposed to be a race. Just teams of 3 competing for a cash prize. That's what they told me." "And you believed them?" "How was I supposed to believe, Neil? You think if they told me I'd be hunted by werewolves that I'd have taken them seriously? I'd have laughed, and so would you." Fred raised his head as a howl filled the air. They were screaming in the distance. No doubt one of the hunters had found its prey. "I knew we could win. The 3 of us, we can win anything, but werewolves, how the fuck was I supposed to know?" "Well, I quit," Mike said. I didn't sign up for some bullshit Halloween special. He began to walk away, but Fred chased after him. Mike, I don't care if I'm disqualified. I'm out of here. A sound stopped them in their tracks then. They'd fled down a path between two walls of junk. From down the way came the sound of something heavy falling. A few seconds later, a long snout appeared around the corner. It was followed by an elongated head devoid of all hair but glistening with exposed muscle. The creature sniffed the air as if discerning something. Finally, those fierce yellow eyes focused on them. "Oh, fuck," was all Mike said before it revealed its sharp teeth. "Run." The trio fled as fast as their legs could carry them, the beast snapping its jaw as it gave chase. It moved paradoxically, like a creature both accustomed and estranged to being on all fours. Its arms were longer than its legs, almost twice the length, giving it a gait akin to that of a primate. Even with its odd movement, it still ate up ground very fast and was catching up with them. Their best chance at losing it came when it broke out of the junkyard toward a quartered-off fence. It marked the boundary between the building and the rest of the playing field. Beyond it lay a parking lot with empty cars. The fence was tall, and there was barbed wire at the top. Near the far end was a gate used for entry. They made a rush for the door. With their long legs, Fred and Mike surpassed Neil, who was struggling to keep up. "Wait," he cried. "Don't let it get me." He dared to look over his shoulder and wished he hadn't. The werewolf had zeroed in on him, like a predator in the wild, and it had focused on the weakest member of the herd, closing in for the kill. Neil felt a hand grab his collar. Fred practically pulled him the rest of the way, throwing him through the door. Mike slammed the door shut just as the beast plowed into it, sending him sprawling back. The lock had snapped shut and held, but only just. The beast growled and snapped its jaws at them, seemingly intent on forcing the door open. Fred and Neil pulled Mike to his feet, staring dumbfounded at the creature's tenacity. "That's not going to hold," Neil said. "Thank you, Captain Obvious. Right, let's move." Taking the reins, Fred led them into the lot. The beast's growls of frustration followed them. "Hey, do you know where we're going?" Mike asked. Fred didn't have a clue. "Inside the building. We're going to ring that bell, win the game, and get the hell out of here. That sound like a plan?" "Didn't you hear me? I said I'm done with this." "You want to go on your own? Go. Those things will pick you off before you get halfway to the exit. If not them, then something else. The only way out is winning." God, he's lost his shit, Neil. Neil had to agree. "This isn't worth it, man. We have to go before... Then Fred just snapped. Then... He slipped, the back of his head colliding against the concrete. A shooting pain blinded him for several moments, and even his friends' voices sounded muffled. "Is he dead?" Mike asked. Ignoring him, Neil waved his hand in front of Fred's face. "Come on, Fred. We can't stay here." "What happened?" "You broke your ass, man." Mike looked around nervously. "Listen, we better get going." "You slipped," Neil said as he tried to help Fred up. A sudden pause caused him to loosen his grip on Fred's hand. He fell back to the ground, into something warm. Fred held up his hand to see the digits covered in blood. He'd slipped on the puddle when walking by. God, there was so much of it that it coated much of the car they were next to. Looking up, Fred followed the trail of blood beneath the car. The carcass on the other side of the car was missing its jaw. Only the upper half remained. Everything below the neck had been torn and picked at. Oh, the beast wasn't finished. It was still feasting, taking out chunks of flesh. It paused when it noticed it was being watched. Fred's eyes widened. Scrambling up, he and the others saw a large lupine form rear up on the other side. It swallowed whatever it had in its mouth whole. Then looking right at them, the werewolf bared its teeth in a morbid attempt at a smile. They ran. Part 3. Fred didn't know when they'd split up. He didn't hear the others as they rushed through the open lot. All he heard was his own heartbeat and that of his footsteps as they hit the pavement. Within moments, he was all alone. The beast howled in delight, and he thought he heard one of the guys scream. He dove behind a van and squatted to catch his breath. Oh God. He hoped it hadn't eaten one of his friends. If it had, he'd blame himself until the day he died, which in this case wouldn't be much longer. God, how could he have been so stupid? Was the money worth all this? Panting, he peeked his head around the corner to see nothing but parked vehicles. Guys, he mouthed with no sound passing between his lips. Something heavy slammed onto the top of the van. The jolt was so sudden that Fred quickly dived under it, crawling in so as to hide. The van trembled as the beast moved, finally hopping off to one side. Fred had to cover his mouth to avoid screaming as he saw a wide pair of canine feet come crashing to the ground just inches from where he was. Two abnormally large clawed appendages soon followed. The beast now stood on all fours. A long snout sniffed at the ground. Heat puffed in the air as the beast smelled. It was so close Fred could almost touch it. He couldn't stay here. He had to move. With as much haste as the situation allowed, he moved slowly out the other way. The wolf's head was almost low enough that he could see underneath the van. And Fred didn't know much about wolves other than they hunted in packs and they had an incredible sense of smell. Sight or not, it knew he was here. Fred grabbed the side of the van and pulled himself up so that his feet were on the stand. Clinging to the side like a fly, he heard the beast sniff about. Maybe if he waited long enough, it would try to go underneath, giving him time to make his escape. No such luck. Through the driver's side window, Fred spotted a bloodied snout sniff the glass on the driver's side. It fogged up immediately. He held his breath. The snout disappeared. The beast let out a growl and slammed against the vehicle. Fred's eyes bulged as the van actually moved several feet towards the adjacent car. He lost his grip and fell back against said car. The wolf slammed the van again, allowing Fred a moment to roll backward, bringing his feet up before the van could crush him as it collided with the car. He rolled over the hood and fell off the other side. Fred got back on his feet just as the werewolf climbed the van. Standing, he could truly appreciate just how huge it really was. Perhaps bigger than the one they'd seen in the spinning blade trap. The creature was at least 8 to 9 feet in height. His body was emaciated to the point where he could see its ribcage. Though thin, its arms were powerful enough to rend a body to pieces. Talons as long as Fred's hands seemed too large for the creature's body, yet they moved with amazing dexterity. Like the others, it was completely hairless, yet coiled with muscly sinew. Well, this was an alpha. Somehow he just knew. The alpha reared back its muscular neck to let out a howl, as if to signal to the others that prey was near. It was greeted with another howl, and then another. Finally, Fred just started to run. Well, it would be impossible to describe the feeling of knowing an apex predator was hunting you. Fred had several points in his life where he'd faced death. A deal gone wrong, a gang incident, some asshole trying to shake him down on the street. But none of them would ever compare to the sheer dread that filled his chest at that moment. Gangbangers and crackheads may try to kill you, but at least they won't eat you. Eaten. Well, it's a primal fear that went back as far as humans have existed. The notion that you are at the bottom of the food chain, that you exist solely for the sustenance of another animal, one far larger, meaner, and hungrier than you. Fred could never put into words the fear he'd felt at that moment. Even Neil, arguably the smartest person he'd ever known, would stumble with the attempt. He heard the beast's pursuit, could feel the ground vibrate with its heavy steps. Fred ran around the cars, knowing he'd never outrun the beast on flat ground. He began to bob and weave, using the cars as obstacles to slow it down. At one point, the beast hopped onto one of the cars and jumped. Fred had just enough time to duck as it took a swipe at him, tearing a long gash into the hood of a car and causing the alarm to go off. Oh, fuck me. Fred scrambled to his feet and took off without looking back. The Alpha slammed into a parked car, causing it to slide into Fred. Stumbling, Fred had enough sense to roll along the pavement, an instinct which saved his life as he found out when his roll took him beneath the car. A long clawed hand reached out to grab him, but it smacked into the bumper instead. Enraged, the Alpha began to shake the car violently. One would think it intended to throw it into the air. Fred began to crawl toward the next car, using it as cover. Well, it went on like this for some time, the beast slamming the cars together while Fred desperately tried to crawl, scraping his already wounded hands and tearing up his clothes. Only when he reached the end of the line, where the cars came to a stop, did he realize his time was up. Across the way he noticed an SUV with an open window. Throwing all caution to the wind, Fred got up and ran as fast as his legs would carry him, which wasn't much. He was tired from all that running. His heart felt like it would give out. He just wanted to feel safe, to have something between him and his pursuer. With his last bit of energy, he leaped into the open window, or tried to. His lower half hung outside, and he desperately tried to pull the rest of him through. God, at any moment the beast would tear into him, would pull him out and devour him. Fred persisted. He collapsed inside, shriveling up on the floor and holding his breath. His chest beat so loud he was afraid it would give him away, not that it needed to. The Alpha could probably smell him even now and would be bursting in at any moment. Fred didn't know what to do. He needed to rest. He needed time to think. The girl was waiting for him to make up his mind. She was hiding behind the second row of passenger seats. Fred spotted her eyes, watching him from the darkness. They blinked as if confused. She held up a finger, urging him to keep quiet. The Alpha was approaching the SUV. From the opening, Fred spotted the long snout sniffing the air. God, it knows I'm here. Fred prepared for the end. At any moment, a long arm would reach him and pull him out to be devoured. He prepared himself, knowing full well death was right outside the door. Moments passed, and the beast pulled away suddenly, growling in contempt as it moved away from the vehicle. Elated, exasperated, and a little more than confused, Fred looked at the girl. She seemed to be listening to make sure the beast was far enough away before speaking. I think it's gone. Her voice was muffled behind her mask. You think? You want to stick your head out and look? I'll wait. Oh, please don't be a bitch. I really can't handle that now. You're welcome. She sat up, seemingly confident the Alpha had wandered far enough away. Fred followed suit, took special precaution given he was closest to the open window. Put as much distance as he could between them and turned to find the girl looking out back the window. Immediately, he recognized her. She'd been part of that all-girl group wearing masks that covered everything but their eyes. She'd been studying the other teams just like he had. Oh, you're that girl. That's your pickup line? She turned to face him. Even with the mask on, he could see that her face was thin, almost gaunt, though her eyes were a vivid shade of green. Well, she looked to be recovering from something, though whether it was drugs or alcohol consumption, Fred couldn't tell. Her voice was surprisingly deep given her thin frame, almost husky, with a drawl that signified she was from out of town. I'm not picking you up, he said as he moved to the back seat, which was as far away as he could get from the open window. No sooner had he done so when the girl pointed a spray can at his face. fuck? Fred held up his hands. What are you... I don't know who you are, so back off. Lady, I'm trying to stay alive. That thing could be back any time. Well, not with this. She eyed the can. Werewolf repellent. Wait, what? Or something like it. My own special blend. Used to keep mutts like that from hurting my sheep back home. Thought I'd give it a try here. Well, you mean that actually works? She scrutinized him in a way that made Fred feel small, almost childish. Yeah, she said slowly. Why, what you got? What did he have? The lighter he had wouldn't be much use against the alpha, and he'd left the metal bar embedded in the shoulder of that naked asshole. Nothing. Then don't judge. Just saved your life. Fine, well, thanks, She stared at him. Beth. Fred. She lowered the spray can. Hi, Fred. Fancy meeting you here. And that's your pickup line. Well, it's been a hell of a night. Just trying to lighten the mood. She glanced outside the window. Anyone else with you? His eyes widened. Oh, shit. Neil. Mike. Friends? Yeah, he stuttered almost involuntarily. This night may have changed all that, though. I mean, what kind of asshole puts his friends' lives at risk because he made a mistake? You sure? Beth asked, as if catching on to this. We got separated. That thing, it chased us and, He stopped. Hold up, where's your team? She shrugged. Lost. Dead. Don't really care. Her response was so callous that it made his blood run cold. It's like he'd escaped one monster just to be trapped with another. Damn. Seeing his face, Beth smirked. Look, they weren't my friends. The hunt requires 3 people, so we teamed up, and that's it. I lost him in the junkyard when those things started chasing us. Whatever happened, happened. She peeked outside the window again. We can't stay here. Why the fuck not? 'Cause that thing's gonna be back, with friends. Wolves are pack hunters. How many are there? She shrugged. I saw 3 so far. You? Yeah, the same. Well, maybe it's just them, if we're lucky. She and Fred had 2 very different definitions of luck. She climbed over the seat to the middle row. I saw an entrance to the building before that thing appeared. Must have been waiting for stragglers to show up. She looked to Fred. Well, that's where I'm heading. You can come along if you want, but just to let you know, I move fast and I don't wait for anyone. Just ask my team. First up, you're one effed up lady. Second, I can't leave without my friends. Well, you left them earlier. That's why you're here. Well, I told you we got separated. So what? You just run around the parking lot hoping you'll find them? That thing's looking for you. Has your scent. Once it picks it up again, it'll hunt you down and kill you. My advice? Come with me and try and reach the top. Stay here and pray the repellent lasts through the night. Or die. She reached for the door handle then. Doesn't matter to me. What the hell is wrong with you? I'm here to win. She looked back. Are you? Her words cut deep. Not long ago, he was willing to risk everything, including Mike and Neil, for a chance at winning the cash prize. His actions had put their friendship in jeopardy, maybe destroyed it for good. But Taxi was ruthless and would do things Fred couldn't even imagine if he didn't pay back the money he owed. And he had to win. He had no other choice. Well, she asked, waiting by the door. I want to win. Then let's go. And she opened the door. Fred reacted as if she'd just opened the hatch on a plane at 50,000 feet, rearing back. But there was no werewolf on the other end, and Beth stepped out casually. Well, this girl had no fear. What the hell did that make him? A man who was willing to abandon his friends for money. As if awakening from a dream, Fred shook off any remaining doubts and urged himself forward. The night air tickled his face, and he was on full alert. There were screams in the distance and howls of ecstasy as one of the beasts had found its prey. The encounter sounded far off, but he kept his wits about him and stayed on his toes as he followed Beth towards the building. Maybe, he hoped, they'd run into the guys along the way. And Mike was tough and wouldn't go down easy. Fred imagined him punching a werewolf in the jaw before insulting its mother. The thought brought a smile to his face. Neil, on the other hand... "Keep up," Beth urged when she noticed Fred lagging behind. The girl moved with purpose, like a person willing to do anything to win. Fred admired that in a woman. "I'll have a time to think with your dick, Fred." He caught up. Beth ducked in behind a car and looked over the hood. "Okay, there it is." Looking back, she spotted Fred's inquisitive face. "Look!" He did. The parking lot was entirely fenced in. The only entrances were the door they'd used to get in and the one leading to the high-rise. Unlike the prior entrance, this one had no door, only a series of broken bottles hanging from wires. Ducking back, Fred said, "I don't get it." "It's a trap," Beth clarified. "A half-baked alarm to warn of intruders. I use something like this back home. Not the most reliable home security system, though. Hard to tell what's what when the wind's blowing." "Well, it's the only way in." "Yep. So, what now?" "Now, we wait." Beth turned and squatted beside the car. "Prey's bound to come along eventually. Rather it not be us." "Are you serious?" "Deadly. Need to be if you want to live." And Fred couldn't believe it. "Those things are out there. You won't have a sit down. We should just have stayed in the car." "Go back if you want. That thing would tear the roof off the way you do a jello seal." "Being out in the open's better?" "God, if I knew you'd complain this much, I would have left you behind." Taking out the repellent, she sprayed the air around them. "Right? Feel better now?" She tossed the can to him. "Here, just so you'll stop whining." Fred looked at the spray can like he'd just been handed a pacifier. Indignant, he asked, "Won't that just attract them?" He shoved the can inside his pocket anyway, feeling somewhat safer though unwilling to admit it. So you're the wolf expert now." Fred was on the verge of pulling his hair out. The bitch was either crazy or just didn't give a shit. Maybe both. What kind of fucked up farm did you grow up on? We're being hunted by goddamn werewolves and you act like it's nothing. Biggest mutt I ever saw was a pit bull. It never tried to eat me. Mustn't have been hungry enough. Beth glared at him. Any animal will eat anything if it's hungry. I've seen a dog eat a man's face. He died days before. Hadn't fed the dog since then. When we found him, half his head had been chewed off by man's best friend. You think it cared that man took care of him all those years? She smirked. Desperation and hunger can make monsters of us all. You are twisted, lady. I've seen things. So have I. She chuckled at that. Somehow it made Fred feel insignificant. You think you have, but I know your type. Been dealing with them most of my life. What the hell does that mean? It's... She stopped. Shh. She looked over the hood again. Hear that? Fred followed suit. There was a lot of noise coming from overhead inside the building. One of the windows on the upper floors broke as a body fell through. The man screamed, flailing his arms and legs as if that would slow the plummet. He howled all the way until his body came crashing down on the roof of a car, bending it and spraying blood and glass everywhere. And the car alarm went off. Holy shit, Fred swore. A runner appeared at the broken window. Yeah, told you not to fuck with me. Now look at you. You're dead. I killed you. Me. Should have played ball, man. But you didn't. Now you're dead. Fuck you. Even from this distance, Fred could make out the distinct yellow hood on the man in the window. He noticed with growing trepidation that the man who'd fallen was also wearing a yellow hood. Our runners were turning on each other now. I see you in hell, the man up top yelled before disappearing back into the building. Stupid prick, he heard Beth say. Now everyone knows where he is. He's already halfway up the building. He's going to win. Only if we let him. She turned to Fred. Get ready. For what? Moments later, they heard the sound of an approaching animal. One of the wolves came running across the other side of the lot, leaping from car to car as it made its way to the corpse. They wasted no time in devouring the remains. The sound it made as it tore through the man's ribcage made Fred feel sick. Wait for it, Beth told him. As if on cue, another monster came bounding into the lot via the entrance to the high-rise. It bore through the jangling bottles and rushed to join the feast. Seeing another of its kind approaching, the first wolf growled in protest. They stared one another down for a moment before snapping their jaws and exchanging short but deadly blows. So much for teamwork. Beth was already on the move, using the cars as cover as she rushed toward the entrance. Fred ran to catch up. So adamant were the beasts to claim the corpse that neither of them noticed the humans as they approached the glass bottles. So focused was Fred on catching up that he almost didn't notice the other runner making a run for the same thing. He must have been hiding among the cars, keeping low to avoid being killed. Wherever he came from, he was fast and making up a lot of ground. And Beth didn't see him. Fred wanted to shout, to warn her, but doing so would attract the wolves. All he could think of doing was running faster, try to intercept the player. Beth reached the bottles first, ducking low. She looked back, expecting to see Fred right behind her. But her eyes widened when she saw the strange man there instead. Move! He bowled into her, sending Beth careening into the bottles. A couple fell off the strings and shattered to the floor, cutting Beth as they sprinkled her with shot. All the beasts stopped fighting long enough to take notice. When Fred saw them seeing him, he threw caution to the wind. Beth, run! As one, the two wolves bounded off the cadaver and started running in their direction. By then, Fred had reached the entrance and had pulled at Beth, who was struggling to get up after being bowled over by the brute. She was dazed by the impact, and Fred practically had to pick her up as he looked for an escape. He noticed the asshole who tackled Beth was moving along the fence toward a flight of stairs beside an access ramp. The stairs were littered with debris, so the man went toward the ramp instead, moving like the devil was chasing him. Well, Fred wished it were the devil, but he was an atheist. Lugging Beth slowed him down, but he managed to set a good pace. Behind them, the beasts bumped into one another as they both tried to get through the entrance at the same time. By then, they reached the ramp and were on their way up. Circumventing the ramp was like climbing 2 flights of stairs, and it doubled back in on itself. By the time they made the turn, they spotted the brute at the top. Both the ramp and the stairs ended at a flight that connected to a path leading to a closed door. Hey, Fred said as he rushed up. You got a problem, asshole. He didn't respond. I'm talking to you. It's trap, Beth stuttered, directing his attention to the small wire the brute had tripped upon reaching the top, causing a saw to snap out. Well, the brute was nearly cut in half, the blade entering at his gut and stopping when it reached his spine. He was still alive, apparently, trembling as his lifeblood coated the floor. Fred and Beth had to duck beneath the blade and wade through the blood to get by. When they got up, the man's hand shot up to grab Fred's arm. He turned to see the brute's eyes, wide with fear and something else. Pity? No. Mercy? Fuck that. Nah. The brute croaked weakly. Not like this. Not like this. Oh, piss off. Fred pulled away and carried Beth toward the door. The wolves had finally squeezed through and were making their way toward the stairs. Fred put Beth to the side as he tried to open the door. It was a heavy iron construct, the paint chipped after prolonged disuse. And it was also locked. Oh, fuck. Looking over his shoulder, Fred could hear the werewolves approaching. Come on, Christ, come on. He banged his fist in desperation. Hey, open up. They're almost here. He pushed and pulled to no effect. The door was not budging. They were trapped. Fred? He looked at Beth, who was struggling to hold herself up. I think we lost. Behind them, the brute screamed as the beasts arrived. The door groaned as it was pushed open from the other side. Get in, Neil screamed, for them to comply, his eyes widening when he saw death approaching. One werewolf had clamped its powerful jaws on the brute's face, tearing at it hungrily as the man's muffled screams became pitiful cries. The other bore down on them, hungry for a fresh kill. Beth barely had time to stumble inside, and both Fred and Neil pulled the door together. It slammed shut just as the beast attacked. The impact was such that it threw both of them to the ground. A solid dent permeated the door. The wolf tried again and again, to no avail. It wasn't getting in that way. Outside, the brute's crying came to a sudden and gory end as the beast tore off his head. This time, however, it didn't seem to mind when its fellow joined in the feast, like eating a kebab. Part 4. Looking at Neil, Fred looked like he'd seen a ghost. Where the fuck have you been? Neil said nothing back. Friendly else? Beth asked. Who are... Neil started, but was cut off when Fred wrapped him in a hug. This causes Neil to wince in pain, forcing Fred to step back. Yeah, what's wrong? Neil pushed him away. What's wrong? I almost got killed, that's what. He stepped back to rub his shoulder. The one that trapped us here broke down the damn gate and started chasing us. Ran inside a bus and closed the door. Neil shut his eyes. Mike helped me escape. He helped me climb the escape hatch to the roof. Told me to run for it. Oh God, that monster got in. Mike? Fred asked hesitantly. I don't know. I just ran like he told me to. Didn't look back. Neil was fighting back tears. He was always an asshole to me. I hated him half the time, but he saved me, and I just left him back there. Oh, God. Fred looked up at the ceiling. Mike. Where were you? Neil turned on him. Huh? Where did you go, Fred? I was being chased by the big one. He swallowed heavily, fighting several emotions at once. Mike, he's strong. He could have survived. Against that? Neil pointed to the dent on the door. Even through the metal, they could hear the beasts as they devoured their latest kill. No one's that tough, not even Mike. Then maybe he escaped. If he did, then I wouldn't be here. You know how I can't run fast. Neil slumped against the wall opposite Fred, his face contorted into one of shame. I hated him. Why the hell did he do it? He could have escaped by himself, but he helped me instead. What kind of selfish prick does that? Excuse me? Beth spoke, making them look up. Sure, this is all very interesting, but do you mind introducing us, Fred? Fred? Neil looked at him. First name basis already. Neil, this is Beth. She saved me from the Alpha. The what? Well, the big one. I'd be dead too if it wasn't for her. Beth, this is Neil. He and Em... He stopped himself. He's one of the friends I told you about. Ah, pleasure, she said without the slightest inkling of it being so. So seeing as you're down one man and I'm down, well, two, you want to team up? Are you shitting me? Neil turned on Fred. We just lost Mike because you were too busy rapping to some chick. I owe her. What about Mike, huh? What about me? I thought the fastest way of saving you was by ringing the bell and ending this fucked up game once and for all. Neil couldn't believe his ears. His smile was one of pure disbelief. That's what it comes down to, huh? Winning a stupid game. That's all you can think about, huh? What the hell was I supposed to do? Mike is dead. Yeah, I heard you. Stop acting like I don't give a shit. You don't give a shit. Girls? Beth slapped her hands together to get their attention. Hate to break up your drama session, but we shouldn't stay in one place for too long. Then to Fred. In case you forgot, there's a runner making his way to the roof as we speak. You want him to win after all you've been through tonight? You acted like it was nothing to worry about. There's never anything to worry about until there is. Then she headed down the hallway, leaving the boys to wallow among themselves. So what? Your new girlfriend's calling the shots now? Ignoring him, Fred followed suit. Neil eventually fell in line, though he kept some distance back. The hall was lit by fluorescent lamps which illuminated dilapidated walls filled with mold and cracks. The doors were all rusted, some whose numbers they couldn't even make out. From somewhere came the sound of water dripping and the stench of sewers permeated the air. Do you trust her? Neil asked Fred in a hushed tone. His eyes narrowed on Beth's back. I don't... Look, when that alpha cornered me, she saved me using some kind of werewolf repellent. And it left us alone after that. Well, werewolf repellent? You stupid. I mean, there's no such thing. Well, it worked. That's bullshit, Fred. You want to test it? He removed the can from his pocket and held it up for Neil to take. Be my guest. There's a couple of those things back there who were just dying to meet you. Up yours. Putting the can away, Fred said, How the hell did you get in here? Was the door locked for you two? Neil looked down. It was. Then? When I found the door, it was shut tight. I almost screamed. Those things were still out there. I figured, shit, I'm gonna die here. He tried to hide his shame. I didn't want to stay in the open and went back downstairs to hide, but then I heard someone open the door. I hid, thinking it was one of them. But when I peered around the corner, I saw it was a person. Couldn't make out who it was, but they seemed to be waiting for someone. It looked female. Then the guy fell out the window and the person ran back inside. Well, it was my only chance. Ran faster than I ever did in my life, only just catching the door before it closed. Ran inside and stayed there listening. The runner girl, who, whatever, was long gone. I was exhausted. Don't know how long I waited, but soon I heard pounding on the door. I was about to run away when I heard your voice. Fred stopped walking, causing Neil to follow suit. Look, Neil, I owe you. And I owe Mike. Only difference is you can repay me by coming clean. He pointed to his chin. Who is she? Look, she was by herself when I found her. She grew up on a farm, apparently. Knows how to fight wolves. He leaned in then. That's why I teamed up with her. She's our ticket out of here. Our ticket? I'm part of the team again? I told you winning's the best chance we have of getting out of here. You remember the rules? One member can win the game for the team by ringing the bell. If she rings it, then her team wins, not us. Hers. Fred scoffed. Then one of us will have to ring it first. And if she's not okay with that? Neil pressed. Think she has a can of asshole repellent on her? Damn it, Neil. No, I'm serious. You shouldn't trust her. I should trust you, is that it? Oh, the words came out harsher than he'd intended. Fred saw the look of hurt and betrayal on his friend's face, prompting him to rescind his comment. Oh, sorry, man. I didn't mean it the way it came out. He lowered his head. I know I was stupid, okay? Taxi is a bastard and I shouldn't have got into bed with him, but well, I did. Now he's going to do to me what those things do to runners. Except they're animals and he's a real monster. He lowered his voice. And I'm sorry I got you into this. Not as sorry as Mike. They walked on in silence after that. They followed Beth up a flight of stairs, ascending the building floor by floor. They came across the body of a runner whose head had been bashed in by something heavy. Beth studied the corpse a moment, her face inches from the ruined mess of someone's cranium. Dude. Neil did a terrible job of hiding his disgust. What are you doing? Studying, she said. Judging from the angle of the hit, the swing came from the left of the head. The attacker must have been the same size, otherwise the attack would have come to the top of the head. Is she a detective? Neil asked Fred. He shrugged. Knowing what you're up against is how you survive. Example. We know whoever did this used some kind of blunt object as a weapon. This head was hit multiple times, meaning it took several hits to kill this asshole. This means the weapon was heavy enough to break the skull, but not large enough that it could do so in one hit. So, I'm thinking, brick, hammer? So, somewhere in this building is a brick holding a brick or a hammer, Fred surmised. Damn, and I forgot my helmet. Was that a joke? Beth said. Well, it's 3-1, so I like our chances. But we don't know how many runners got inside. Well, there's that guy who threw his friend out of the window. Fred thought about it. You think this is his other teammates? No yellow hoodie. How can you tell? Fred asked. It's all covered in blood. That looks orange, Neil said from some distance away, still trying to keep his stomach in check as the two casually discussed strategy over a dead body. Hard to tell with the light. Beth shrugged as if it didn't matter. You may be right. Anyway, keep an eye out. Also remember to duck. He sure didn't. She searched the body for something useful and came up with a pair of keys. Unless those belong to a Ferrari, I wouldn't bother. She turned to Fred. It's a weapon, dumbass. She mimicked a stabbing motion. Poke someone's eye out or gouge their neck. Oh, you are fucked up, Beth. It's how you survive. Then they were on the move again. At the next stairway, they found debris blocking their ascent. Forced to find another way up, they walked across the hall, reaching a T-junction on which an elevator stood on the other end. More than half the lights were either broken or not working. Leaving the hallway with little illumination. Doesn't anything work here? Fred said. Beth turned to him. What? Nothing, come on. Are we seriously taking the elevator? Neil asked incredulously. Well, you want to walk all the way up? Be my guest. Fred took the lead with Beth following suit and Neil bringing up the rear. They walked in a straight line, Beth's warning about a potential attacker with a blunt instrument still fresh in their minds. In this formation, they could easily come to the other's aid if attacked and could react quickly enough in case of an ambush, though the latter was unlikely given that this was a race and time was a factor. Waiting for an enemy to just show up while you were on the clock did not bode well for victory, so they moved quickly, but with caution. Beth paused. Hey, what is it? Neil asked. At the front, Fred stopped to listen. She turned her head to the side. Thought I heard something. Her voice was low. She looked back the way they came, staring intently. Well? Fred asked, eager to get on the way. Nothing. Just being alert. Nodding, Fred continued walking. There was a tiny click and the sound of gears turning. Fred! Neil shot past Beth, grabbing Fred and pulling him back just as one of the doors sprung open, unleashing a series of spikes that would have impaled him on the spot. Fred's eyes were as wide as saucers as one of the spikes nearly grazed the tip of his nose. He heard himself whimper, gawking as they slowly receded back into the room, the door closing on an automated mechanism. Holy shit, Beth snapped. How did you know? She asked Neil. Didn't you hear the gears? Some sort of a trap. Looking, Neil bent down so as to examine the floor. A step behind Fred, he noticed what appeared to be a tiny green dot, a sensor of some sort on the wall. Neil waved his hand in front of it, and the machine whirred to life and the door swung open again, sending the spikes stabbing outward. Fucking house of horrors. Christ, Neil. Oh, that's twice I owe you. You're embarrassing me. Look, this place is booby-trapped. Neil stood up then. I bet the elevator is too. Not for nothing, Fred, but I'll take the stairs. The others seemed to agree. Heading back the way they came, they continued down the hall where the T-section had begun, eventually finding another set of stairs. Instead of debris, however, they found the flight leading up was gone, the stairs having long since crumbled. Eat me, Beth cursed. Well, it's like they want us to try and walk through the hallway of death. Fred sighed loudly. This night was getting better and better. Seriously, I think climbing outside the building is the safest way to go. I just want to find a room and hide. I don't care who wins anymore. I just want this night to end. Neil grabbed at his hair. This is so fucked up. Easy, boys. We're still in this. I'm not, Neil said. You always give in this easy. He glared at Beth. I don't have to prove anything. Neil, Fred said to get his attention. She's crazy, Fred. I'm not crazy, Beth snapped. Beth? What? Fred held up his hand to silence them both. Just let me think, all right? Then came a thump from below. Someone was whimpering. Neil mouthed, "What was that?" They all leaned over the broken banister, eyes fixed 2 stories below where the next floor began. A figure slowly appeared. It was a man, wounded, clutching his stomach as his innards hung from a wicked gash. He was losing a lot of blood. How he'd managed to get this far was anyone's guess. Help. His voice was small, and it took effort for him just to speak. I can hear you. Using one arm, the man pulled himself onto the first step. He turned his head as far as it would go, eyes pleading for their aid. He opened his mouth. His final words turned into a scream as something big, pulled him out of view. The trio looked on in stunned horror as a fountain of blood splattered the steps, the man's cries gurgling to an abrupt end. Frozen in place, they remained silent as they heard heavy breathing. An image came into view, a large lupine head with blood covering its muzzle. Fred's face contorted into pure horror. The Alpha. Fred motioned for them to retreat back down the hallway. Moving as fast as they could, they made it to the T-junction when Beth called for them to stop. Another werewolf was sniffing at the end of the hall. Looking up, its yellow eyes leered at them menacingly. How the fuck are they getting in? Fred cried. Behind them, the Alpha had reached the top of the stairs and started to bound in their direction. Fred pushed them. The elevator, now. But the traps, Beth protested. Look for sensors, Neil cried. And this time he took the lead, jumping over the sensor that Fred had triggered earlier. The others followed his example. Behind them, the Alpha and its cohort had reached the T-junction. Seeing its prey, the smaller of the two quickly bounded after them. The Alpha, while scrutinizing, kept a safe distance. Only when the first werewolf had triggered the trap, impaling itself on the spikes, did it realize its caution was well-founded. Reaching the elevator, Beth, Neil, and Fred looked back in time to see this beautiful sight. Yeah, that's what you get, asshole. Fred was ecstatic. Beth whooped. Neil was the only one with sense to push the elevator button. The spikes retracted, dragging the animal's corpse back into the room with it. Only when it shut did the alpha make his move. To their continued horror and amazement, the large beast used its powerful arms to pull itself onto the ceiling. It then righted itself so that its body was, from their standpoint, upside down. It then began to crawl across the ceiling like some giant vermin, making its way toward them. "Oh, come on," Fred yelled. Neil kept punching the elevator button. "It's not working," he stressed, biting his teeth. "You're not doing it right. How do you fuck up pushing a button?" "Oh, come on, hurry up," Beth pleaded. The alpha was already halfway to them. Chips of stone and plaster fell to the ground, the hull shaking as it built up speed, sensing its prey was trapped. The doors slid open. "Got it." Neil jumped in first, followed by Beth and then Fred. Neil pressed the button for the top floor before rapidly tapping the one to close the door. But the door stayed open. The alpha was almost upon them. "Shit!" Neil kept screaming. Fred pushed him away and slapped the button beside the one he was having trouble with. The door slid shut just as the alpha came crashing to the ground, emitting a howl of outrage at their sudden escape. Neil looked at Fred, who simply shook his head. "You were pressing the wrong button, dummy." Realizing his mistake, Neil felt his face redden. "Oh, shit. Well, that's how you fuck up pushing a button. We're even now." Fixing his glasses, Neil asked, "What?" 2 and 2. Next win sees the loser buy the other a Coke. Fred looked up as the elevator moved. The elevator shook as it continued its slow ascent. He prayed that the damn thing held together. Still in disbelief, Neil hunched over as he spoke. "Oh God, I'm stupid." "You're human. You deal with it and move on. That's what Mike would do." Neil looked at him again. "This is for him. All the hits he took for us, all the fights we won because he was there. I owe him more than I want to remember. He gave me a lot of shit too, but I knew he always had my back. Just like you did." Fred sighed. "I am sorry for all of this." "Ah, jeez," Beth began. "You two aren't gonna fuck now, are you?" The boys looked at her. "No." "Well, good, because I'd hate to feel left out." And the elevator shook. Either this is the slowest elevator on record, or the building's a lot taller than I remember. Fred smacked the button for the top floor several times as if that would speed them up. The lights dimmed and the elevator stopped suddenly. The panel indicated they had 2 stories to go. Beth shoved him aside, hitting the button. "I think you broke it. Nice." To hell with this. He tried to pry the door open with his bare hands. "Damn it, Neil. Help me with this." Together they managed to pry the door inch by inch. They were stuck between floors. The lower half opened to utter darkness with only a single light flickering in the distance. The upper floor wasn't much better, equally desolate and smelling of mold. Naturally, they chose the top. The closer they were to the finish line, the better. Fred hopped up first to take a look around. "Right, it's clear." Beth came up second, crouching beside him as if readying for an attack. "Well, those must be some wolves," he said. "I have to visit your farm one day." "You should." "You guys can flirt later. Move out the way." Neil was complaining now. "Well, unless you want to find a room." Fred offered him a hand up. "Oh, your hotel sucks, man." "I complained to the management. I just work here." No sooner had he pulled when another hand grabbed his ankle. Neil fell backward, his head hitting the elevator floor, dazing him. "Neil!" Fred jumped back inside, thinking a werewolf had got him. Turned out it was something just as ugly, though far smaller. The last surviving member of the yellow hoodie gang, his face covered in blood, was pulling Neil into the floor below. Reaching over, Fred tried to punch him in the face, but couldn't get a good angle. Neil cried out as he was pulled off the elevator and into the darkness. "Neil!" Beth cried as the elevator sank down to the next level, the lights flicking on and off a couple of times before going dead entirely. The sudden drop made him lose his footing, and he collapsed to the floor, face first. He could taste blood in his mouth. Forgoing his fight with Neil, Hoodie turned to who he considered to be the more dangerous opponent. Whatever weapon he had was now poised to strike downward, and he wasted no time. Before Fred could get up, Hoodie was on top of him, straddling him as he tried to bury the sharp object into his chest. But Neil was on him in moments, tackling Hoodie much like he did the man in the first scuffle in the junkyard. Though this time they didn't have Mike to back them up, and their opponent was strong and big. But it was 2 against 1, and the friends pressed their advantage. Neil kept punching at Hoodie's face while Fred struggled to push him off. Tired of getting jabbed, Hoodie reared back, headbutting Neil in the face. Blood splattered out and he fell backward, clutching his flattened nose. And this allowed Fred to push Hoodie off of him, though he swung the object, knife maybe, with deadly skill and precision. No novice to street fighting, Fred could hold his own, though he hated to fight in the dark. Desperate, he pressed the attack. Well, the fight took shadowboxing to a whole new level. Occasionally there'd be a flash as the light from down the hall would glint off the knife. This proved beneficial for Fred as he knew exactly where the knife was, could defend against it. But then Hoodie changed tactics, moving to the other side of the elevator so that his shadow would block the light. Oh, piece of shit. Fred realized his mistake too late as speaking out loud let his enemy know exactly where his mouth was, and he angled his next attack for Fred's neck. He dodged just in time, smacking right into the wall. Hoodie moved in, but Fred kicked out, catching him, he hoped, in the groin. With Hoodie doubled over, Fred jumped on him, but the man possessed incredible strength and shoved Fred right out of the door. He stumbled to the ground. Outside the lift, Hoodie had more room to move, more space to swing that knife of his. Well, things just went from bad to worse. It was at that moment, just as Hoodie was stepping off the elevator to continue the fight, that he spotted Neil's shadow crouching beside the entrance. Just as Hoodie stepped off, Neil tackled his legs, stumbling the large man. Seeing his chance, Fred got up just as Hoodie grabbed Neil by the hair and started bashing his head against the wall. Fred leapt, bringing both his knees up, slamming into Hoodie while he was distracted. He heard something snap as they hit the wall, but it turned out to be the button console and not a rib. Still, the attack had stunned Hoodie enough that Fred was able to get a handle on the hand holding the knife. The 2 men began to struggle for control. "Neil," Fred said through sweaty teeth. "Bite his kneecaps or something." Though dazed and bleeding, Neil started to kick at Hoodie's thick legs, aiming for, of all things, his kneecaps. Close enough. The distraction proved fruitful, drawing Hoodie's attention away long enough for Fred to slam the man's hand down against his knee, dropping the knife. Fred quickly reached for it, but Hoodie was already on him, burying him beneath his own weight. He pinned Fred's face to the floor and grabbed his head. Hoodie started to bash Fred's face against the floor then. Fred's vision started to wane after the second hit. "Stop!" The bashing ceased. Hoodie remained perfectly still. He couldn't see it, but Neil had managed to grab the knife and was holding it to Hoodie's neck. "Let him go." Hoodie complied. Oh, Fred never knew what a splitting headache was until that moment. He felt Hoodie's weight leave him, and he struggled to get to his feet, succeeding only as far as his knees. A trickle of blood blinded him in one eye, and he felt his forehead to feel the warmth of his own life on his face. Through his other eye, he spotted the large man still on his knees, with Neil holding the knife at his jugular. The slightest twitch would open the man's throat. Hey, good on you, Neil. Fred, Neil stuttered. You okay? Yeah, I'll live. Thanks for the save. Well, that's 3 for 3. You owe me a Coke. Fuck you. But Fred had every intention on keeping his part of the bargain. Neil had earned it. Wiping the blood from his eye, Fred slowly worked his way to 1 foot. Only when he finally got to his feet did he realize just how outmatched he'd been. God, Hoodie was built like a linebacker. The man could have crushed him in a fair fight. Were it not for the lack of lighting and Neil's timely assistance, Fred would most likely be dead. Who are you? Hoodie looked up. His dark eyes were black in the low lighting. Fuck you. Well, fuck you. I saw what you did to your friend, tossing him out the window. You know, if he was still here right now, you'd have won the fight. Maybe you don't know what a team is. I don't give a fuck what you think, man. Hoodie's voice was deep but raspy. Judging from the blood on his clothes, he'd gone through the shitter. It's life or death out here. Ain't that the truth? Fred? You could see Neil's frightened face as he spoke. What do we do with him? Hoodie chuckled at that. Your boy don't seem to understand the game. Yeah, but I do. Fred moved like a cat, grabbing the knife from Neil's hand and shoving Hoodie down to the floor. All Fred had to do was lean in to puncture a nice clean hole through the man's throat, and it was game over. The two players stared at one another. Neil looked on in fear, too shocked to even react. Well, I ain't begging, Hoodie said. I don't want you to beg. I just want information. Why ain't you at the top yet? You just want to kill more people like you did your friend? Hoodie smiled at that. No friends in this world, man. Just those who die first and those who die later. Which one do you want to be? That was real screwed up what you did back there. By killing your boy, you made yourself weaker. Now look at you. Got dropped by a guy in glasses. No offense, Neil. None taken. So why'd you do it? Fred leaned in on his chest, making it harder for Hoodie to breathe. Huh? Got on my nerves, Hoodie said without the slightest hesitation. You would have done it too. I don't kill my friends. I'm not a monster like you. Hoodie's next words, after he was done laughing, echoed in Fred's mind. Desperation and hunger can make monsters of us all. What did you say? Fred shook him then. Say it again. Fred, who cares what he said? Neil pleaded with him. Let's get going. Listen to your boy, Freddy. Time's a wasting. Who told you that? Where'd you hear those words? Fred. Do you know Beth? Talk. Eat shit. Hoodie's words became gargled when Fred stuck the knife in his throat. The big man squirmed, nearly throwing Fred off of him, but Fred persisted, putting his full weight atop the dying man. He stabbed repeatedly again and again, spraying blood all over his face. Neil could only watch in abject horror as his friend killed the man in cold blood. After a while, Hoodie stopped moving. He went limp as the life drained from his eyes, his lifeblood pooling beneath him. Fred was trembling too, though from rage. He spit Hoodie's blood out of his mouth, wiping the rest from his face as he stumbled back, kicking the corpse for good measure. The experience was like waking from a dream or a nightmare. This isn't right. No shit. Neil, who by then was huddled against the far wall and shaking, said in a shrill voice. You just killed that guy. I'd say there's a lot of things that ain't right. Have you lost your mind? Beth said those same words to me back in the lot. They know each other. Well, knew, he corrected. And that's a death sentence? Why was he here? And he was so close to the top. It don't make sense. You don't make sense. And Neil kept his distance at that. He was going to kill us. Have you done this before? Killing, I mean, for taxi. Fred shook his head. First time. Christ, man, what's happening to you? It's the hunt, Fred spoke up. It's all a game. This isn't fun, Fred. I mean, Neil couldn't continue. I can't do this. I can't. And with that, he took off. Neil! Fred called after him. Neil took off down the darkened hall, headed straight for the distant light bulb. Fred got up and almost fell to the ground immediately. The trauma from having his face bashed in had not fully subsided, plus the exertion from stabbing a human being to death did little to ease his already frazzled nerves. He knew he had to take it easy, but all he could think about was catching up to his friend. Forcing his legs to move, Fred gave chase, having to prop himself against the wall as he did so. Neil! Well, he'd almost lost sight of him, which wasn't saying much given the limited visibility. He thought he heard Neil's footsteps receding in the distance, though his mind was so fuzzy it was hard to know which steps were his own or his friend's. When Neil screamed, Fred felt his blood freeze. There was a sudden thump as the scream came to an end, followed by a forced cough. Oh no. Fred's slower pace ironically saved his life, for he had just enough time to stop before falling over the edge of a drop. The floor just ended where he stood, a gaping hole that looked like the floor had collapsed into the one below it. There was water below, as if a pipe had burst, creating a small flood that, presumably, spread through the rest of the floor. But it wasn't the hole or the water that held Fred's attention. It was a sight of Neil impaled on spikes below. One went right through his right shoulder, another had penetrated his right thigh, and another through the stomach. He couldn't stop bleeding. Neil! Frantic, Fred searched for the fastest way down. With the walls in tattered shape around him, he spotted an exposed metal cord. Fred angrily pulled at it until it came loose, pulling as much as he could until he had enough to at least avoid plummeting to the same fate as his friend. Even with the risks involved, Fred moved like a man possessed, determined to reach Neil. He jumped, causing the metal cord to rip from the wall. His momentum was such that he swung over the spikes, but only just, grazing the topmost with his feet. He let go as soon as he was clear and came crashing down to the floorboards, sending water everywhere. Though the spikes impeded his progress, he was able to make it to Neil, who was just on the edge of consciousness, his body going into shock. Oh man. Oh man. With budding tears, Fred could only look on as his childhood friend died before him. This is my fault. It's all my fault. He watched Neil's eyes turn toward him. The fall had knocked his glasses loose, and he tried to fix them on. Fred instinctively did it for him, as if nothing were wrong at all. Thanks. The hell are you thanking me for? I did this to you. Neil tried to laugh, but all that came out was a bloody cough. Hang on. I'm going to get you out. Fred leaned down, careful not to impale himself on the spikes, trying to get some leverage in an attempt to pull his friend free. Neil screamed, and more blood came out, causing Fred to stop. I'm sorry. Shit, I didn't mean to. Neil coughed more blood. I'll find another way. Let me get something. God, there has to be a way. From somewhere on the floor, something heavy came crashing in. It sounded like a wall or a door coming down. Then something snarled as it splashed into the water. Oh, fuck. His voice barely above a whisper, Fred looked at Neil as if asking him what to do. If he tried to pull his friend loose, he'd just bleed out. not to mention scream so loudly that the beasts would come running. But if he left him like this, Neil would die slowly. More than enough time for those things to... God, he just couldn't think about it. Neil, tell me what to do. I don't know what to do, man. Hearing Fred's voice made Neil open his eyes. They seemed focused, more focused than Fred had ever seen them before. Climb. What? Neil bobbed his eyes toward the floor above. Climb. Find the light and drop it. I don't get it, man. Take them with me. He smiled, showing bloodied teeth. Suddenly it dawned on Fred, his friend's last brilliant plan. No, I can't. Neil's smile turned dark. Don't be a bitch, Fred. Make it worth something. Fred froze. For me, send them all to hell. And he grunted. Go, get out before I kick you. He fell into another coughing fit then. Oh, the werewolves were getting closer. There was no time. Man, I'm sorry. Guess I won't be getting that coke. Neil smiled weakly. With the final gesture, Neil took off his glasses and offered them to Fred as a memento. Unable to say no, Fred took the spectacles and headed back to the cord he'd pulled from the wall. The upper half had tangled up on the floor above him, providing just enough leverage so that it didn't come out when he tried to climb back up. Once on the next floor, he ran as fast as he could to the solitary light in the hall. The bulb hung from the wall. It buzzed as he approached. Removing his leather jacket, Fred covered his hands and pulled out the cord connected to the lamp. Oh, he pulled with all his might, even feeling some of the shock as the current flowed down through the cord. He pulled it until finally the cord came free, and so did the lamp. It sparked madly, as if protesting its outage, but Fred didn't care. He carried it back to the hole, sparks flying. He could see two of the hairless beasts now. One of them was sniffing near Neil's head, while the other was already nibbling away at his thigh. Neil was in too much shock to notice. His eyes were fixated on Fred, as if that were all that existed in the world. Seeing the light, the werewolf nearest his head looked up. Neil smiled. Without a second thought, he dropped the lamp over the edge. The monster let out a growl of pure malice just as the electric current went through its body. His partner began shaking uncontrollably along with it. All the while, Neil looked happy. It was a good death. The whole process lasted just a few moments, enough time for the current to spread throughout the waterlogged floor. Anything else in the vicinity would not have survived, and charges sparked along the surface. The beasts slumped to the ground, and everything was cast into darkness. Fred stood there until it was all over, catching the final smile on his friend's face before it disappeared, swallowed by shadows. Part 5. He managed to find a flight of stairs, expecting an axe to lop off his head as he opened the door. But that would have been too easy, he thought, too quick. Trudging his way up the stairs, Fred felt the air grow colder. When he reached the metal door and pushed it open, he was greeted by the night air. Across from him, standing on a dais, much like the one where the host first introduced the rules of the game, was a silver core bell with a black handle. He lurched forward, and the door shut tight behind him. The night was uncomfortably quiet. Hard to imagine a game of life or death was being played out below him. Did anyone else make it, he wondered. There were so many runners at the beginning of the game. Surely a few had reached the building, or at least managed to avoid getting killed somehow. Some of them may have hidden, or at least tried to escape. There had to have been some survivors. Couldn't just be him. Well, it wasn't. Hey, Fred. She'd been sitting off to the side of the roof with her back to him, her legs dangling over the edge. Her nonchalant greeting only made him angry. How could she be so coy after everything that had happened? Who the hell are you? His voice dripped with venom, and slowly he made his way toward her. It wasn't the bell he wanted to ring right now. Just a survivor like you. Though I've been doing this a bit longer. She put up her legs and turned around. Congratulations. You win the hunt. Well, you will as soon as you ring that bell, of course. Go on. And Beth stood up. Fuck you and everything else about this game. Language, Fred. And her eyes darkened. I was starting to like you. For the last time, who are you? I'm Beth. No, you're not. You're with them. Whoever runs this game, the men in black are wolves. You're in on it too. And I'll bet so is your team. And? She pressed. Oh, the Yellow Hoods knew about it too. Or at least one of them did. And he felt his ire rising. That's why he killed the others. They found out and he killed them both. I bet he worked out a deal with you, letting him win if he helped take out the competition, like that poor bastard with his head caved in. Fred took a step forward. I killed the son of a bitch, stabbed him to death. He displayed the makeshift knife. Yep, with his own weapon. Beth shrugged. Win some, you lose some. In his case, he lost everything. Well, unless you want to join him, I suggest you stop being a smug little bitch and start talking. Fine, you win. I was in on it the whole time. You were right. Happy? Happy? My friends are dead. So are mine, she smirked. You killed them. He froze then. I stopped feeling them a while ago. Hell of a thing losing those closest to you. But then again, they weren't the best friends. Oh well, next time. What do you mean I killed them? Just that, Fred. You killed them along with your best friend. Reaching up, Beth removed her mask to reveal a patchwork of scar all over her face. All was self-inflicted. Well, helps you to blend in with the sheep. Pieces started to come together in Fred's mind, like looking at one of those magic eye books for a long time, only for the image to finally click. Well, you hated yourself for not seeing it sooner because you were too busy trying to make sense of it. And the more you tried, the harder it became. Sometimes you had to step back to take in the whole picture. There's no such thing as werewolf repellent. Duh, she said. The reason the Alpha didn't attack us in the car is because it smelled you. Uh-huh. You were never in danger. Well, some wanted to hurt me, but they knew better. The pups are the hardest to keep in line. She crossed her arms. You may have run across a few of them in the yard. Too wild to fully understand what they're capable of. All they know is the pain and the rejuvenation that comes with killing. She pointed to her face. I did this to myself when I first turned. Took all my hair off. Would have taken my skull too. Then I killed her. She took a step forward. She was my best friend and I ripped her to pieces. Well, it hurt at first, then I realized how good it felt. The power. Soon it became as natural as wiping my own ass. Taking another step. I guess that's something we have in common. Fred instinctively took a step back. Something was different about her. He felt as if he was in the presence of a predator, a literal wolf in sheep's clothing. How did you know I killed Neil? Good ears, sweetie. I could hear you from 2 floors up. It's how I knew there was a werewolf waiting by the open gate. I also heard everything you and Neil talked about while you were walking behind me. Ooh, you guys had a lot of issues. Oh, I guess it doesn't matter anymore. She stopped. In the span of one game, you managed to take out 3 of us. That one in the hallway was a fluke, but still. For a sheep, just to kill one wolf is an accomplishment. Whew, you're a survivor. Fred raised the knife. Look, You keep away from me. I swear to God I will end you. Too late for that. She pointed to her scars. I kind of like it now. God, you're sick. Actually, it's a requirement. She looked up at the waning moon. Have you seen a full moon all night? I haven't. That's because that stuff they teach you in the movies is pure bullshit. Pain activates the change. That's why we're forced to cut ourselves, physically injure our bodies until the beast decides to come out. It takes a bit longer for the young ones. Yeah, they need a lot of enticement. Fred thought back to the first werewolf, the one in the field of blades. Even after impaling the bar on its shoulder and bashing its nose, it took a direct cut from one of the blades for him to transform. A thought came to him. No fur, he said. That gets in the way of the change. Just more medieval superstition. We're as hairless as the day we were born. Why? She shrugged. Why not? Don't be stupid with me. Do you just like killing people? His hand was clenching the knife so tightly that it trembled. He felt the urge just to leap over, grab Beth by the neck, and drag the blade across her stomach, spilling her intestines. It was brutal, carnal. He was thinking more like her at every moment. She even moved like a predator now, casually circling Fred until she was standing in front of the door he'd just come from. Keeping the knife on her, Fred's eyes darted around as if expecting to be attacked at any moment. Wolves traveled in packs, after all. You ever make a really big mistake, Fred? Beth cupped her hands together, like a lecturer about to impart some knowledge to her class. You ever take something that didn't belong to you? Get into a fight over a parking space with some fancy-dressed prick only to find that he's part of the mafia? You ever cross somebody you wish you didn't? What am I saying? Of course you have. Taxi isn't pleased with you. In fact, he hasn't been pleased with you for some time. From your talk with Neil, I'm guessing he had no idea you crossed Taxi several times before. Now, he's small change compared to the people he works for. These are the real high rollers, people you wouldn't want to owe 5 cents. They made up games like The Hunt for their entertainment, watching people fight for their lives from the comfort of their yachts or 6-story condos. Well, they're watching us right now. She pointed. Look. A small drone was situated in the sky above them, watching their every move. They've been watching you since you've arrived. Wave to the camera, Fred. And Taxi's part of this. A very small part. He finds players for the game. People nobody would miss. Drug dealers, gangbangers, migrants, orphans, sluts. The dregs of society. The type of people the cops will make only a half-hearted attempt to search for before closing the case. But Neil had a family, Fred protested, and Mike. Michael lived with an alcoholic father who doesn't know where he is half the time, and that's when he's sober. As for Neil, his mom's a recovering drug addict and his sister moved out to get away from her. Even when they do decide to look for him, the hunt will have moved on to another location. And as for you, she smiled evilly. Not much to say. Dead dad, mother who's almost never home because she's too busy getting drunk with some skanks at the bar. Does she even know where you are right now? Fred's face said it all. We do our homework on all runners. We know your backstory, your favorite shows. Makes it easier to provide a cover story just in case some nosy PI does decide to do a little digging. Team Toadstool? Really? You're saying this was Taxi's idea? Fred looked at the drone and wondered if that prick was watching him right now. No, he's not a high roller, so no. He just provides the fodder. How do you think a know-nothing like you managed to get an invitation to the hunt? He set you up, Fred. You think he cares about that courier bag you lost? Chump change compared to what we're paying him to send lowlifes like you to the game. He'll get his cut and then some, while you try to survive. His head suddenly felt too heavy. His chin lowered so that his eyes were squarely on the ground. And the prize money? Oh, it's real. How else do you entice a bunch of losers to risk their lives? No one would participate if they thought they'd just get a "I survived the hunt" t-shirt at the end. But who gets the money? That's what's bothering you? Christ, Fred. You just fell headfirst into one of the biggest conspiracies in modern history and all you think about is money? You want it that much? She pointed with her lips. Well, there's the bell. All you have to do is ring it and it's all yours. To the victor go the spoils. Fred didn't feel much like a victor. More like a piece of shit you scraped off your shoe. You may as well. It's not like you have anything to lose at this point. And at the very least, you can finally pay Taxi back the money you owe him. Go ahead, you earned it. Take your reward. Win the game. Fred looked back. Oh, the bell was right there. All he had to do was ring it. What did he have left to lose? Uh-oh. Beth's voice caused him to turn back. She was looking to the side as if listening to something. Oh, I stand corrected. There's one more player on the field. Guess you've got some company. She stepped to the side as the door behind her creaked open. The player was limping and covered in blood from head to toe. He was almost unrecognizable under all that gore, but something about him struck Fred as familiar. It took less than a heartbeat for him to realize the truth. Mike. Looking up, Mike revealed what appeared to be a makeshift bat with a broken bottle attached to the end. There were cuts and bruises all over his body, and he looked ready to collapse. Yet something in his eyes made Fred tremble. It's as if the human part of him was gone, replaced by something feral. Something like Beth. He was an animal. Mike, oh, Christ, you're alive. Fred took one step forward toward his missing friend, only to have Mike raise his weapon in self-defense. Stay away from me, he snapped, his voice growling. I swear to God, I'll kill you. Mike, it's me. I thought you were dead. Oh, you almost died. Many times. Beth looked at him. But he's proven to be the ultimate survivor. All he has to do to win the game is ring that bell. After he goes through you, that is. Yeah, but the rules say only one player has to ring the bell to win for the whole team. Beth's voice was cold now. Oh, that's not how life works, hon. Well, the hunt is for keeps. One victor, one survivor. Looking at Mike, Fred realized what she meant. I'm not fighting him. I should think you'd be used to killing your friends. From the looks of it, Mike's been through the ringer. How about it, Mike? What do you have to do to get this far? How many people have you killed? Mike glanced at Beth as if noticing she was there for the first time. What the fuck are you? Oh, where are my manners? My name's Beth. Pleased to meet you. She's one of them, Mike. She's a werewolf. Seeing his chance, Fred pointed an accusing finger at Beth. She's not human. It depends on how you define human. Mike looked between them. Well, what? This is all a game, Mike. Some rich bastards get a hard-on watching us kill each other all night. Doesn't matter who rings the bell or wins the money. This is all for them. Fred dropped his knife. Well, I'm done being jerked around. By you, by Taxi. You can all burn in hell and eat every ounce of shit on the way down there. You hear me? Fred looked up and gave the drone the middle finger. Fuck all of you. You know, Mike, Beth said, if you win, all that money is yours. No need to split it 3 ways. There's a whole lot of things a guy like you can do with $1 million. Pointing at Fred. All that's standing between you and a new life is that guy right there. The one that put your life in danger just so he could pay back Taxi. The one who abandoned you in the parking lot because he wanted to win the game and... Don't, Fred pleaded. The one who killed Neil. You killed Neil? Mike gawked, some semblance of his humanity shingling through the haze of darkness that gripped his soul at that moment. Mike, here. Reaching into his pocket, Mike pulled out Neil's old glasses, all he had left of his friend. He was dying. Because of you. Fred's head shot up. I tried to save him. He ran off. I couldn't stop him in time. He fell. There was a trap. Oh, he'd be alive if it wasn't for you. Isn't that right, Mike? Tell me she's lying. You didn't. He wanted me to do it. Mike's voice was low now. Do you have any idea what the hell I've been through? Do you know what I did? His tone rose. I bashed a girl's skull in because she wouldn't shut up. I let those things eat a man alive just so I could escape. His face tightened at the proclamation. I didn't want to do it, but I didn't want to die. And you wanted to win, Beth said. Prove it. She pointed at Fred then. He owes you. Now, take it back. God damn it, I've had it with you. Fred reached for the knife and charged toward Beth. But Mike swung his improvised axe, far faster than a man at the point of exhaustion should be able to. Fred narrowly missed having his face taken off, only just dodging to the side. What the hell, Mike? It's all your fault. Then, raising the axe, Mike screamed, It's all your fault. So began the final confrontation of the game. Realizing his friend was lost to his bloodlust, it was all Fred could do to keep from losing his head. Though injured and tired, Mike was taller and stronger, and he had a weapon with greater reach. His first swings were wide, easy to dodge, but Mike was a natural fighter. Between an abusive father and the streets, he'd learned how to handle himself in any situation. Changing tactics, he began to time his attacks, keeping Fred off balance as he moved in close. At one point, he feigned a swipe only to bring the butt of the axe up to clock Fred on the side of the head. Fred recovered, but only just long enough to get punched in the face. He rolled with the hit, a tactic he ironically learned from Mike during some sparring sessions, and grabbed some loose soot on the floor. As Mike approached, Fred threw the soot in the air, the cloud blinding Mike long enough to get a safe distance. He knew he should be fighting back, could have stabbed Mike a few times, but he didn't want to hurt him. Mike was angry, delirious. Beth had turned him against him. Though his actions may have had something to do with it as well, of course. Regardless, he wasn't about to kill his last remaining friend, not for some stupid game. Mike, stop it. You killed Neil. He wanted me to. He didn't want to be eaten alive. I owe him my life. I owe you an apology. Fred stood up then. I'm sorry for everything. I don't even care about the money anymore. I just want to get out of here. Too much blood. Mike swung around, forcing him on the defensive again. Don't make me do something stupid. Too late. Mike bum-rushed him. With his back against the edge and a sheer drop below, Fred could do little but resort to drastic measures. As his friend came in at him, Fred ducked and made to ram his legs like a human bowling ball. Mike was lucid enough to jump, which is exactly what Fred had intended. The plan was to put Mike off balance and, in attempting to run at Fred at full speed before stopping, had done just that. Mike stumbled, realizing too late what Fred had planned all along. He didn't roll like he'd feigned to do, but turned at the last second, swiping at Mike's legs with the knife. He'd aimed for Mike's thigh, the blade cutting deep and causing Mike to scream. Fred twisted it for good measure, pulling the knife out just as Mike swung the butt of the axe toward his face, clocking him upside the head. Stars filled Fred's eyes as he collapsed to the ground. You stabbed me. Gritting his teeth, Mike clutched the hole in his thigh. Blood flowed freely from the wound. "You gonna let him get away with that?" Beth asked from the sidelines. She stood beside the entrance with her arms crossed, a smug look on her face. "After all you've been through?" Mike turned a hateful gaze in her direction. "Shut up, bitch. I'll deal with you after this." Promises, promises." And to Fred she said, "I had such high hopes for you, Fred. I really thought you'd go all the way. I'm betting Taxi didn't think you'd last an hour, but you made it to the top. Against all the odds. Now there's just one thing standing between you and victory." Fred hated her voice, hated her face. He hated her accent. He hated the fact that she was still breathing. Rolling to his feet, he risked a glance in her direction. Taking his eyes off of Mike proved to be a mistake, for the big man charged him again. The wound had slowed him just enough that Fred was able to tackle him before he swung the axe, putting both arms around his waist. Fred dug in his feet to stop Mike's momentum, but Mike raised the axe and brought the pommel down on Fred's back. He did this 3 more times, but Fred held strong. "Get off me. Not until you stop being a dick." They're in love," Beth joked. The pommel strike to the back of Fred's head was enough to loosen his grip, and he fell, stunned. Mike began to step on him as if meaning to crush every bone in his body. Fred thought he heard something crack, though it turned out to be Neil's glasses as it slipped out of his pocket when he fell on top of it. Bruised and overpowered, Fred suffered the barrage, his body beaten and broken. Mike stood over him, gasping from the exertion and the loss of blood. "Looks like we have a winner." Beth clapped her hands together as if applauding a child's attempt at doing a cartwheel. "Guess bigger is always better." Fred forced himself to turn around, looking up at the man who would take his life, a man he once called friend. He still held the knife, though it would do him little good, as it was on the opposite side of where Mike was standing. His other hand clasped the ruins of Neil's glasses. Mike glared down at him. Even hurt, he was an imposing sight, a true warrior. Maybe he did deserve to win after all. Fred held up his hand, but it wasn't to plead for his life. In it he held Neil's broken spectacles. "Do you know what it's like to kill a friend? You know how shitty it feels? It was a mercy killing, but still I'd trade places with him in a second. He's gone, Mike. I'll never see him again. Hell is too good for me." "We're already in hell," Mike said. Fred had no response to that. Instead he raised his head so as to expose his neck, like giving permission for Mike to end it all. Mike raised the axe. Nothing happened. Fred opened his eyes. "We're waiting," Beth said. Looking up, the brawny youth locked eyes with the skinny girl. He kicked Fred one last time, eliciting a groan of pain, and then stepped over him. He was in no hurry, and Beth didn't seem the least bit afraid as the larger player approached. He stopped just short of her, looking down with his immense frame. "You like to hear yourself talk, don't you? So, are you going to eat that?" She pointed her chin at Fred. "Eat this." Mike raised his axe in an attempt to dislodge her head from her body in one powerful swipe. The impossibly long arm burst through the door, and then an impossibly long arm burst through the door, catching the axe in mid-swing. Mike reacted as if he'd just lodged the weapon inside an oak tree by the way he stopped. The Alpha moved its large frame through the now open portal, its breath fogging up in the air as fresh blood dipped in its jaws. It stood behind Beth, towering over both of them. Well, try as he might, Mike couldn't dislodge the weapon from the Alpha's grip. He let it go just as the Alpha ripped it from his hands, sending the axe tumbling over the edge. Still on the floor, Fred watched with wide eyes as the Alpha took a swipe at Mike, an attack that would have taken his head. Mike dodged at the last second, although the effort caused him to stumble backward, his wounded thigh burning with pain. Should have taken that win, asshole. Beth looked up. How you doing, baby? The Alpha focused its eyes on the two boys now. It emitted a growl so deep that they all felt it. Up in the sky, the drone zeroed in on the action. She turned to Mike. Why are you making this difficult? It's you or him. Or none of us. Fred slowly got up, the beating he'd taken making every bone wince in pain. This is entertainment. Doesn't matter which of us rings that fucking bell. The audience wins either way. Does that matter if you're rich in the end? It matters if you lose everything you care about. He got up to his feet. That money will help me pay my debts. I could leave this city, move someplace safer, someplace with no wolves. There ain't no such place in this world, hon. People get eaten wherever they live. Just saying. Yeah, I think you're right. The girl smiled. Well, it might as well have been a snarl. You may as well be the apex predator. About that. Fred smirked. I just realized something. This may be fun and games for them, but what about you? You do this for the kicks? It's about the hunt. Yeah, but you can do that anywhere. You can live in the woods and hunt deer, or tourists on some beach. The wolf lives and hunts where it wants to, but you're not a hunter. You're a pet. Well, Beth glowered. You do whatever your masters want you to do because it makes them happy, like a good little dog. He chuckled. You're a big dog, Beth. But a bitch is a bitch no matter what legs she walks on. The Alpha growled. Beth lowered her face. You want to see a bitch? Pulling the set of keys she pulled from the dead player downstairs, she began to cut deep into her face, drawing blood. Beth trembled. Well, here she is, hon. Hope you like it. Beth started to go crazy, cutting lines all over her face and head. What the fuck? Mike said from the floor. He'd barely moved with the Alpha so close, but now he was backpedaling. Beth screamed as the transformation took hold. Her clothing began to rip as her muscles popped. Her arms and upper body extended as her muscle mass was redistributed. Her knees bent backward and her head elongated. Soon all her clothes were a tatter as the beast revealed itself. With her new claws, Beth began to tear at the rest of her skin, ripping it off her new body. Exposed muscle glistened, cords of meat and tendon as the flesh was torn. She fell on all fours as the transformation was completed. Looking up, Beth's canine face zeroed in on Fred. Feeling less confident all of a sudden, Fred stepped back. He didn't think he'd ever get used to seeing a human body desecrated like that. Whatever attractive features Beth once had were lost beneath the unleashed savagery. Having the Alpha behind her only emphasized how truly fucked their situation was. God, if only Neil had been there. Neil. And just like that, Fred forgot what it was to be afraid. Hey, assholes. He turned towards the drone camera. You liking the show so far? Well, how's this? Fred flipped them off. That's from Neil and all the other people who died tonight. We're not here for you. We're here because we have nowhere else to go. We're desperate, but we survive. We take whatever you can throw at us, and we throw it right back. If that doesn't work, we burn it all down. Beth growled. Mike, who had been backpedaling to put some distance between himself and the werewolves, looked incredulously at his former friend. What the hell are you talking about? You lost your damn mind. We're not getting off this roof. Maybe, but neither are they. What? What do you say, Mike? One more time? Fred approached him and offered his hand. Not long ago, Mike was ready to bash his head in and walk away a rich man. That Fred was willing to let bygones be bygones seemed to unnerve him more than the bipedal monstrosities before them. For Neil. Serious? Fred's silence was all the answer he needed. Too confused and exhausted to make sense of it all, he took Fred's hand. Well, it took effort to stand on his wounded leg, and he limped on one foot. Shit, man. If Neil were here, I'd have already rung the bell. You'd have let him win, and you know it. You always were soft on him, Mike. Whatever's waiting for us after this, I'm going to kick your ass there, too. Mike, Fred said. When his friend turned to him one last time, he smiled. Man, I'm sorry for everything. This is not how I planned to go out. Me neither. You know I was totally kicking your ass back there. I was letting you win. Fuck off, man. Then side by side they faced their imminent death. Even Beth had surpassed Mike in height when standing on her hind legs, her body hardening with the transformation. One swipe of her powerful claws could disembowel either one of them or crush their heads like melons. The Alpha, on the other hand, was sheer horror given form. It was truly the most terrifying thing either of them had ever seen. Just a walking mountain of muscle, teeth, and claws. It sniffed the air as if tasting their fear. Mike, Fred whispered so that only he could hear. When I give you the word, I want you to run as fast as you can toward the bell. Mike looked at him as if to ask why. Just do it. Mike sighed, but Fred knew he would do it. If nothing else, he'd be the last of them to die, and he could at least watch Fred being torn apart first. It would be karma for all the shit he'd put him through tonight. Above the rooftop, the drone watched, its audience glued to their seats. Now! Fred rushed toward the werewolves while Mike did an about-face and began running towards the bell. Seeing this, Fred turned suddenly, his back towards the onrushing wolves. Oh, Mike, you son of a bitch. Fred tried to sound as betrayed as possible. With his back facing the wolves, they didn't see him reach into his pocket. He turned just as the Alpha had reached him, its maw agape and jaws wide. What it got instead was a mouthful of fire, as Fred opened up the spray can while aiming the lighter. Like a torch, it blew a flame into the Alpha's face, causing the beast to screech in agony as its tongue and nose burned. It swiped out at Fred, but he had the presence of mind to duck and roll. He rose up to fire another cone of fire directly into the Alpha's face. Its eye socket popped, and it keeled over like a stuck pig. So much for apex predator. Fred kept pouring on the flame, so much that the Alpha was covered in fire from the neck up. The beast howled in absolute agony as it ran back and forth, slamming into Beth. She staggered away as her mate, in a state of pure panic, didn't watch where it was going. The drone camera zoomed just in time to watch the Alpha careen off the side of the roof, its howls of anguish filling the air as it plummeted towards the ground below. Having reached the bell, Mike turned just in time to see the Alpha fall over. That's what I'm talking about. Beth made a sound so shrill that it caused the boys to cover their ears. It was pure rage generated from the deepest reaches of her soul. She stood on her hind legs now, towering over Fred. She turned to him with eyes that glowed like angry stars, brimming with hate. Mike! Mike rang the bell. Ding dong, bitch. Game's over. We win. Above them, the drone camera zoomed in on Mike, the game's winner. The speaker came to life as if the machine were alive. The hunt is over. The winner is Team Toadstool. The voice was warped as if spoken through a mask, but the sound was music to their ears. Team Toadstool, Mike screamed. Eat it, cocksuckers. Fred's smile was one of elation, not victory, though it was soon gone the moment Beth, faster than her size would hint at, struck out at him. His hand and the spray can went flying through the air. Fred gawked at his lost limb, confusion warring with shock. Beth fired off a backhand that struck him square in the chest. It was like being kicked by a mule, and he flew backwards. Fred! Grabbing the bell, Mike ran towards Beth. Get away from him. Seemingly ignoring him at first, Beth moved impossibly fast, slashing at Mike just as he came within reach. The attack left 3 vivid scars on his chest and stomach, which bled profusely. Holding his guts in, Mike fell to his knees. Oh, shit. The hunt is over, the drone said again. Cease all game-related activity. Moderators are on their way. Beth didn't care about the game now. She didn't even finish off Mike. The only thing on her mind was Fred. Turning, she predator walked toward him, her mouth wide and her claws extended. Fred was lying near the edge. His wound bled and he swore he could still feel his missing hand. Looking up, he spotted death approaching. Fred, Mike called while trying to hold himself together. Fred got up, reflexively threw the lighter at Beth's head, though she hardly felt it. Grabbing his shoulder, Fred felt her claws dig deeply into the flesh, and he screamed. Beth pulled him up, the blood seeping down her claws and arm. She lapped at it hungrily before chomping down on his ruined hand. Oh, the pain was exquisite. Fred heard himself screaming. It's like having an out-of-body experience, his mind wanting to be anywhere but here. Somewhere between life and death, a small part of him lingered because of a single voice in his head. Fight. He felt it in his pocket. One last item remained. Well, this close he couldn't miss. Fred stuck the remains of Neil's glasses into Beth's eye. Screeching, she spat out the remains of Fred's arm, her grip loosening enough that Fred managed to slide free. Grabbing her, Fred wrapped both his arms around Beth's waist, which was thin enough for him to do so in her transformed state so that they could connect on the other side. With most of her weight now transferred to her upper body, it was a simple matter to pivot her over. He gave Mike one last apologetic glance as both he and Beth went over. Fred! They fell. Beth's claws dug into the flesh of his back, ripping at it, exposing bone. But Fred held on. There was nothing left to do now. We won, he thought. He could almost hear Neil's voice in the back of his head, the voice that had told him to fight for all he was worth. His friends earned that. Then he smiled, and he never stopped. Mike woke up feeling like shit. His whole body ached and his mouth tasted like metal. He'd had enough bloody noses and busted lips to know the scent of blood, and when he tried to move, it was with the understanding that anything he did was going to hurt. It did. Oh, shit. His voice was weak, but he lived. He had survived. Opening his eyes, he found himself inside a white tent atop a hospital bed. The bed was surrounded by plastic casing to seal it off from the outside. Removing the blanket, Mike found he was completely naked and with various bandages around his body. God, he looked like Frankenstein. Still in pain, he rested back on his pillow. Feeling better? Looking up, he spotted a face he thought he recognized. It was the host from the beginning of the game. The man looked chipper, as if greeting an old friend. Good morning, or rather, good afternoon. What? Your wounds were considerable. Some of us didn't think you'd pull through. But you're nothing if not determined. Oh, congratulations, by the way. You are the winner. He brought a tiny noisemaker to his lips, giving it a celebratory blow. Where am I? You're in our hospital tent. Couldn't take you to a real hospital. People would ask too many questions, and we like our privacy. You have impressed a lot of people. Most didn't think you'd last past the junkyard, but you proved them wrong. When you killed that werewolf inside the bus, he kissed his fingers like a chef. That was genius. Well, I have to say, you're one of the best players we have ever had, Michael. Yeah, I call you Mike. Mike tried to sit up, but fell flat. Oh, careful now. Those are fresh stitches. You were falling apart when the moderators brought you here. Guts all hanging out. He scrunched up his face. Never did care much for the sight of blood. Ironic given my profession, huh? Fred? Mike asked, though he already knew the answer. Oh, he's dead. Really dead. Took out one of our best hunters, though. Never thought I'd see her go down. She was the real alpha of the pack. Sorry to see her go. She killed Fred, Mike growled. Actually, your friend killed himself when he went all kamikaze. A noble sacrifice. Mike tried to hide his anger, but he was never the subtle type. Don't care how long it takes. I'm going to find and kill each and every one of you. The host held up his finger and wagged it back and forth. Now, none of that. You won fair and square. Take your winnings and enjoy. In fact, stepping aside, the host revealed a suitcase on a stool. He opened it to show the prize money. This is all yours, I said, grabbing the sides of the bed to prop himself up. Mike grit his teeth. I'm going to kill you. The host's face darkened at that. Shutting the suitcase, he placed it on the ground. He took the stool and pulled it closer to the partition before sitting down. Now, Mike, I understand you've been through a lot, and you're mad and confused. I don't blame you for being emotional at the moment, but you must understand something. No one forced you to play the game. You could have left any time. You would have been disqualified, but you wouldn't be here. You'd never let us go. Did you try? The host inclined his head to one side. At any point, did you try to leave the gaming area? Mike vaguely recalled a conversation he'd had with Neil and Fred regarding that same issue. They came to the conclusion that they would never be allowed to leave. Well, I laid out the rules just before the game. You could have just left and no one would have tried to stop you. That you chose to participate in the game despite the consequences proved you were a willing participant. Just like that? Just like that. The host leaned in slightly. What? Do you think we're worried about you going to the police or the news? He scoffed. You think they believe you? A career criminal in the making? Besides, anyone who's anyone is in our pocket. There are people in City Hall who are aware of the hunt, and they couldn't care less. You want to know why? His smile was more predatory than any of the werewolves Mike had encountered. Because they want you gone, Michael. You and all the other scum. For generations, the hunt has been an alternative means of punishment against those who break the law. Look at the players, thugs, criminals, prostitutes, dealers, tramps. You contribute nothing to society, only do everything in your power to bring it down. Well, the thing is, our correctional facilities don't work. Prisons are overcrowded and our schools are generating more delinquents than productive citizens. Little future crooks. So, sometime in the past, a bunch of higher-ups decided on doing something about it. Take a bunch of these lowlives and dump them in a place where they'll do what civilized society should have done from the beginning. We'll throw in a cash prize, some booby traps, a few cameras, and hey, you got a show. The werewolves were a nice addition. Originally, we had serial killers and cannibals serve as hunters, but that got old real fast. These things are true hunters. The best part? They were more than willing participants because they were just doing what they do best. Kill. 2 birds, 1 stone. He sat up straight. I see you're still conflicted. Let me ask you this. Do you feel bad about taking any of the lives you did last night? Did you do everything you could to survive, even if it meant killing your fellow man? Of course not. You wanted to win. I wanted to live. And for that, you almost took the life of your best friend. Mike had no reply to that. Beth may have egged you on, and Fred did lie to you, but still you were adamant about surviving, even if you had to go through Fred to do it. Yeah, you can play the victim all you want here, but in the end, you're no better than the beasts who tried to eat you. The only difference is they accept who they are, and their actions benefit society. They help us clean the filth from our streets while providing entertainment as well. Given the choice between you or them, I choose them. And deep down, most people would too. Fuck you, Mike said, though it sounded weak and forced. Truth is truth, but enough with all that. You're the winner. You're rich. Be happy. I'm nothing like them. I'm nothing like you. Feeling sorry about your friends? Donate their share to their families. I'm sure they'd appreciate it. Plus, you still have more than enough to leave this city and live like a king. Or take all the money with you and spend it on yourself. It's not like we're going to stop you. You thought for a moment. Or if you're feeling really noble, just leave it. Walk away with nothing to show for it but your honor. I'm sure that'll pay the bills. Then the host stood up. Either way, the choice is yours. He turned to leave toward the exit. You're free to leave as soon as you're feeling better. Just walk out the flap and be on your way. Nobody will stop you. Hey, have a nice life. The host opened the flap to allow sunlight into the tent. How, The host stopped. How do you live with yourself? Tears were building up in Mike's eyes. How can you go on calling yourself human after this? Well, I'm as human as you are, Michael. But I realized long ago that deep down, there's a monster in all of us. Doesn't take much to bring it out. That's why we create societies. We build cities and make laws so that we can control that darker side of our nature. When we forget that, the animal starts to work its way out. Claws at your skin, rips apart to reveal the monster within. No one chooses to be a monster. The host looked over at him. Oh, Michael. Of course they do. And the flap closed. Michael stayed there for a long time. Well, it's a long time since I've done a story like that, and really enjoyed that one. It had a pretty, satisfying ending. I guess they won in the end, well, one of them did. So, yep, thoughts, feelings, anything else you want to share in the comment section below the video, and I will be there to join in as ever. Well, that's been a long week. It's the first time I've done this, to be honest with you. After all these years, first time 5 days in a week with one story. It was extremely satisfying, but a bit bunged up still, as you can probably hear in my voice. So these last couple of days have been a bit of a I was just really invested in the story, so I'm glad I got to finish it with you. So I'll be back again next week, maybe on Sunday as well. I've actually got another couple of stories already recorded, so it might be something on Sunday, but I'll definitely be back again next week, if not before. So hope you enjoyed that one. Much more coming up. See you all again real soon. Till then, very sweet dreams. You get a good sleep now, okay? Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this story today. Really means a lot to me and to the author of the story, of course. Well, if you want to know more about me, I'm pretty much everywhere on social media. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can download my music on SoundCloud. I've got a Patreon if you feel like. Throw me $1 or $2. Very much appreciated. And of course, on Reddit, I have a place where you can leave stories if you want me to read one that you've written. Well, hoping to see you all again very soon. Till then, sweet dreams. Bye-bye.